as we do with the DPW. And so maybe we'll put our heads together there. But I don't see, especially given that the drainage system itself is not really being touched here. It's just everything around that. I think what this does is draw our attention more towards communicating with the school to review a multi-decade drainage system and just see if there's some maintenance that needs to be done there. I see Michael Lesser. Who's Michael?
Oh, I don't know if Janet had her hand up first. I was just going to make a permitting suggestion that.
Can you identify yourself, Michael?
Michael Lesser, 54 Forest Street in Sherborne.
Yeah.
I was going to make a suggestion that possibly you consider doing this under sort of a friendly enforcement action. Is a possible permitting way for you to deal with this thing and have some control over the fact that it looks like the conditions there are in a sense a violation. But that's an easy sort of friendly process that you could do in terms of still have a permitting process in place for the Conservation Commission. And I don't know what conditions there might have been when the field was first done, and 10 years ago or so. I don't know whether there was even a notice of intent then and some order of conditions then that might have some conditions about this. But I see somebody shaking their head that it was never done, or however the stormwater. Yeah, I find that it's interesting that this is a stormwater issue that maybe needs more attention than just repairs in terms of what's the treatment of the water that's going out there. But
so part of that is we don't know. So I think communication prior to orders is appropriate, and we do seem to get along pretty well with the other departments in the town. So that would be my initial feeling, but and enforcement would require. Normally, we're dealing with resistance, and I don't expect to run into resistance here. However, I appreciate the desire to be helpful there.
Usually it isn't. Well, I sit on the Conservation Commission at Sherborne, and we do friendly enforcement orders all the time.
And we may get to that, but right at the moment, I want to deal with the track and the work, and then what I see is something that we need to do down the line. I don't see a need to, right at the moment, unless I've been told otherwise, to hold anything up on this. So I'm not inclined to issue an enforcement order based on this meeting. I think we need some on-site discussion there before we do that. So we'll take it under advisement. I appreciate your help and your background with Concom and Sherborne. Janet?
So I'd say my primary concern in terms of protecting the wetland during the construction and renovation phase, just to minimize any kind of erosion and protect the resource area during the construction activities. We could have just an agreement. That's not usually how we proceed, but we could have some kind of agreement that I inspect the erosion controls, and we are very specific about erosion controls and some kind of monthly monitoring report. But again, the concern is if all the crumb rubber is being removed, or the majority of it, and then also portions of the concrete under the track, I believe, are being pulverized and reused on site, there is the potential for runoff of sediment, so close to the wetlands. And I just think we want to have at least some element of oversight on that. It could be a simple agreement or something like that. Meg, I'm wondering if you have a photo of the other outfall that you could share.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And have you, I haven't seen it, but I've been busy with many things. I saw your plan, Meg. Did we get a plan from you for a proposed construction sequence or anything like that? Have you?
Oh, is that the wrong one? Not that I know of, because we haven't had to submit. anything.
Okay.
So we
So,
haven't, but we're
but as,
certainly happy to.
just on an in-house basis for
Yeah.
the, addressing the items that Janet mentioned, which are very normal concerns,
Mhm.
you know, when,
Yeah,
with that sort of
absolutely.
thing. Do you have a plan that shows your proposed, erosion control or your proposed way of filtering anything that may, go into those, catch basins or the catch grates that you have there?
Yes, give me one moment and I'll
Okay.
pull it up, but just,
Why don't
well,
we,
yeah.
let's take a quick glance at this.
Really?
So we see, you know, not huge scouring there, and no trap rock, or maybe trap rock was there and it may be silted in, but it would be, you know, I think that would be part of our maintenance discussion, to review that, just to make sure. I think this gives us an opportunity to do that via the school, probably not via the track and field renovation engineers. But as I think what Janet just outlined is absolutely the way, the information we would want to have.
Mhm.
So that for all those reasons, that we don't want debris going down into this this outflow.
Absolutely. Let me pull up our construction documents here. So just to orient yourself, so we're in the same orientation. The wetlands that we're talking about are kind of way page south there. So what we're having in here, so as I mentioned, the we'll go to this side first. So there's the existing catch basin here that and one right here that the drainage systems tie into, and then these come over and tie into that bigger trunk line that I had mentioned over here. So you can see that we do have our silt sacks and all those kinds of things within the catch basins, and then we do have our erosion control line. So we are calling for just to kind of point it out,
Straw
erosion
wattle.
control straw wattles going down and around. Oops, excuse me, hold on a sec. Let me zoom back in. So you can see that's that dash line that you see, and that continues along the entire, all this area where, we have potential for erosion, as Janet was mentioning, some of that asphalt work being removed and things like that. As we move in here, we don't have it because we actually have the concrete bleacher pad in here. So it's kind of another natural buffer. And then as we move over page right, outside the bleacher area, we have that erosion control picked right back up. And then over on this side as well, there is, this is actually the manhole that everything ties into, and it's a manhole as opposed to a catch basin. And then that trunk line is down here that it collects. I can go to back to that other plan if it's helpful to kind of show those. But so the ability for, anything to tie in and to get stuck is minimal. The channel drain that I showed you before, in that picture, that actually gets covered with duct tape essentially before any of the removals happen. So the ability for, the infill material as the carpet and infill are removed to get in there is pretty much zero because it's completely covered. So we do take quite a bit of caution just to make sure that, materials during construction aren't going into that drainage system.
And what's the proposed start date for this?
Mark, you want to weigh in on that one?
I'll weigh in on that. Is really, we haven't awarded the contract yet because we have to make sure we get all the town approvals. But if we do have pass all those hurdles, we are looking at our last day of school is June 17th. So we would be mobilizing sometime after that.
Okay, so summer, less rain, less runoff, so forth, fewer
Right.
people, all that.
Well, yeah, our goal is to have it up and running so at least part of our fall sports can participate.
Okay. Janet, given, I mean, it is relatively simple in terms of their ability to control access to the drains there. Do you have other suggestions?
I would like to see erosion control around the outfalls, and not straw wattle, but compost sock, and maybe, I'd have to look more closely at the outfalls, but perhaps we could do a follow-up site meeting with the commission and the consultants and whoever from the high school, just to make sure that we're doing everything we can to minimize any kind of runoff into the wetland.
And would you imagine that as a elongated U-shape erosion control barrier that would extend out from there and circle in on itself, or?
I'm not sure because at least one of the outfalls had a pretty good flow going, even though we're in a drought. So I'm not sure a compost sock is going to do the job, but maybe layered compost sock. I think we'd have to really look at the site. And I'd like to get Mike and Jerry reviewing that too.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So, Meg, you've seen the concern we have is you do what you can up above in case something gets by. We don't want it going directly into the wetlands.
Sure.
Does
Yeah.
that make sense? And
Yeah, and I was gonna say, you know, if you want, we could actually do something right where the connection to the system are on both sides instead, just to allow the rest of the campus to drain as it normally does down through, because it's, you know, like we said, it's a small area going in there. We're happy to put in, you know, compost, that's totally fine. But if it's more helpful to put something just at the outlet, you know, where the system ties in, you know, in the actual manhole, we could certainly do that if that's more of a concern. You know, stop.
I think that's and you have a manhole there. That's an interesting control point, unless you have lots and lots of rain. But so I think those are the main things that we're concerned with, and I think they should be easily addressed. And Don, I think our involvement in this, it would be strictly relative to how things could affect the wetland during construction.
Okay.
And then the follow-up on that would be then to open up communication relative to maintenance and let's take a look at the outfalls, and maybe we can dig up how they were approved in the first place. And they may not have, at that point in time, may not have considered that it was necessary to come through us as a maintenance issue. But at the very least, work with Mike Angieri and the school maintenance folks to make sure they're not going to fall apart catastrophically
Yeah,
at some
no,
point.
absolutely. And like I said, our groundskeeper has been with us since 2013. He's really good. He has acquired a lot of history, so he can help fill in some of the questions you may have.
Great. And since you mentioned that, you received a letter from us
Yeah,
relative to the
I
tailings.
just, and yep, I did. We received it yesterday. We were off on Friday and Monday, and I left Janet a message. Be more than happy to schedule a site visit.
Okay. Because I mean, it's obvious it just needs to be placed somewhere else, and of course nobody wants them. But it's
Yeah, so it's crumb rubber left over from the initial install.
yeah.
And we're trying to locate it, but we do have a letter from I was told, I wasn't here at the time, but from the Board of Health to allow us to store it there. So we did get town approval to store it there.
And to store it because you occasionally need to dip into it to patch
But
things, or
we've never dipped into it. It's just, you know, I think at the time they don't take it away. You don't throw it in the trash can, and I think it was there. We continued to potentially had crumb rubber in this new one, we probably could have used it to fill in. But since we're getting rid of all of crumb rubber, at some point we will just get rid of what's behind. I did go back there and physically see it for myself after I got the letter yesterday, and I think and I'm leaving it just as is. So when Janet comes to look at it, I think you can tell if it's been there for 12 years, it hasn't really traveled that much at all. And it's not hitting past the grass. But we will definitely at some point over the summer, that will all be taken care of.
yeah, I think we just, if we have something in writing saying that it will be disposed of with the other crumb rubber.
That's
we have no idea if that pile was originally 5 feet tall, so we can't.
Yeah,
we
no,
can't
we knew it
say.
was we knew the quantity. There was a quarter bag and a half bag, and that's about that's still basically what's there.
That seemed, I thought that was
The
bigger than.
bags are big though.
Oh,
The bag, from I understand, they're not little tiny. They're not like fertilizer bags. They're big, 5 foot by 5 foot. Mark and
Oh,
Maggie may
okay,
know.
got it.
They're bigger bags.
Okay.
But that was what was left. But when our groundskeeper started, he questioned why it was there, and so the previous athletic director did show him the letter from the town. So I think that's important just to note that we did have town approval to keep it stored back there.
Okay, well, that's part of the communication. So we'll confirm that that's going to be removed and
Yes.
take it on from there. So our next step, Janet, I think as I've mentioned, and I'm open to any commissioners, I think this is not a call to revise the drainage system, given that they're really not even touching the drainage system. But it brings maintenance issues to the forefront here. Do you see this as being handled at least this time around on a just a communication basis between the town engineer and conservation in terms of letting us know what work is being done and what protective measures are being taken?
So I agree that that follow-up should take place, but as I mentioned, related to this construction project, I do think we want to come to some kind of agreement with the project team, the school, and also Mike and Jerry about what kind of erosion protection is needed at both outfalls.
And I think we have tonight's meeting as well. Meg, can you, rather than just nod your head, can you say yes to that?
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Okay, so we have that, and it'll be noted in the minutes, and let's just stay in communication, and Mike is a good resource on that, and let's move forward on that. Okay, and then of course, if at some point, I don't expect it, I expect that we'll have a lovely relationship. So I don't see a need for an enforcement order unless things aren't happening. But but given that the state of the rest of the campus, I don't expect that to be a problem. So
No, I mean, it's an asset to both towns technically. So
Yeah.
we're all in for, improving where we need to, but we haven't neglected it. We definitely has been taken care of, and some of it just is, might look a little bit cosmetic, but we will definitely work with the town crews to do whatever investigation and improvements that we need.
yeah, I think it's probably been a out of sight, out of mind situation. Now we see it, so we'll just address it. And I don't,
Yep.
expect it to be a major issue there. Okay, any other comments from anyone, commission or other people? Okay, then Megan, Don, and Mark, if you just maintain open communications with Janet, and she'll also will feel free to contact you as well if to voice any concerns or any concepts she has to make this work. Okay.
Great, thank you all so much. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you for your
Okay,
time.
thank you. Night.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have a requested determination of applicability for 1 Conrick Lane. Janet, can you fill us in?
Sure. This is an RDA. I had reviewed that. I did go out to the site to look at the proposal. The submittal did not indicate the location of the wetlands, so I did ask for more information, which we received yesterday in terms of the wetland location and the 50 and 70-foot setbacks. This is pretty straightforward. It's a driveway, replacement of an existing driveway, a slight expansion of the driveway within the 50-foot no disturb setback, and then a really substantial amount of on-site native plantings. I wish all of our applicants would create a native buffer like they're proposing here. So my only 2 questions, so they have submitted a revised site plan that shows the wetland resource areas, the setbacks. I also saw a drainage pipe that was fairly close to a slope running down to the wetlands. I believe they have revised the site plan to pull that back, and they've added an infiltration chamber, a very small one, to handle that. Let's see, they added filter mitt compost sock and orange construction fencing. So I think the only question is, and perhaps, let's see, Monique Allen, who did the site plan, is here. A portion of the driveway, they are just trying to square off a turn-off area for an extra car, and it is in the 50-foot no disturb, but it's not, Monique, you're shaking your head.
Janet, it's between the 50 and 70.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's within the 70-foot no structure. But I think because they are doing a substantial, they are removing a substantial amount of lawn and replacing it with new native plantings on the wetland side of the driveway, I think that's more than adequate mitigation for that extra driveway area.
Mhm.
But perhaps, Monique, you could pull up the site plan just so the commission can see the proposal.
Absolutely. Start here and share. Okay. Can you all see that okay?
Yep.
Okay, so just to give you a little orientation, here is the house, the site. It's on the corner of Conrick and Saddle Ridge. We have a wooded coniferous swamp over across the way, with a hydrological connection under Conrick and a little bit of a outflow right in here. And the driveway, so you can see the wetland flagging right in here. Here's Conrick Lane. This is our erosion controls coming up. As you can see, the driveway is staying the same, with the exception of this spot right in here, which is probably the most important for you to look at. You can see the dash line in here is the existing driveway. And so we'll be pulling the driveway back about 4.5 feet. There's a basketball hoop here. We're going to be removing that, putting in some large boulders just to keep everybody out of that area and to keep cars protected. And then the drain that Janet was mentioning comes off of this roof corner of the garage. Right now it goes about out to where the, not even, maybe about to where this measurement line is, but we're going to pull it back and create a little infiltration pit here so that we don't exacerbate runoff. So these are the areas that are changing. In total, it's 145 square feet of addition when you take away, what we're removing, and then adding. It's 145 square feet of added asphalt, and mitigated with 2,200 square feet of lawn being removed, from the bottom of the driveway all the way up for the entirety of this side yard will all be removed, and then fully planted out. So from the side of the house all the way down the driveway, there's also a strip of lawn that goes up on the left side of the driveway all the way up, and we're going to remove that lawn as well and fill it in with native plants, ground covers and ferns and such.
Mhm. Mhm. Looks great. Thank you. And but just for example, what plants are you putting in there?
Oh, you've got a whole list.
I don't know. I don't need all of them, but are there anything?
Well, so we've got things like winterberry and Virginia sweetspire. We're gonna do some blueberry and viburnum, so that's all on this left side. And then lots of ferns, carex grasses, irises, some little blue stem grasses, so it'll be just very meadowy and kind of woodland meadow if you would.
Mhm.
if you were.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Janet, given all that information, is this something that you feel comfortable voting on this evening?
Yes, so again, the requested revisions were fairly minor. Usually we like to see those things a week in advance, but they turned those around, and I do think we can go ahead and approve that tonight with a negative determination.
Mhm.
6 special conditions, but I think with the boulders being in place, my recommended number 3 condition, which is our standard permanent bounds,
Mm-hmm.
I would leave that up to the commission if that is required or not. I do recommend our 2 standard signs, though.
Mm-hmm. And commission members, anyone have an idea? Anything to answer to that on that?
This seems, yeah, I don't think of any of the signs, and this is such a net positive
Yeah.
that.
So you don't see
kinda-
the need for the signs, or
I don't really,
I mean, there's gonna be a lot of vegetation before anyone can go anywhere.
Right.
But there is a wetland there. I just don't know, putting something on the downward slope to the wetland just so landscapers don't put anything in there. I'm not.
So if I may, just put a little thought in here. So if you remember the first shot I showed you, like Conrick is a dead end, and their driveway goes uphill pretty steeply. And if we put signs down that hill, you're not going to see them. The area where it is kind of funny, actually, I'll share my screen again because I think this could be interesting. This spot right here, this corner,
Yeah.
especially right here, right on the corner. It is amazing to me how many times I see cars parked all up and down that side of the road. And we haven't seen any dumping in this wetland, but we've seen dumping down the street. So there's a part of me, like, I hate to like force my client to have to do signage, but there's a part of me that wants to encourage them to do signage, but more on the public, the very flat side, and maybe even put no parking. I don't know if you can do that, but they are parking so close to, what would be wetland. So I'm just curious about your thoughts on that. In the area that's more public than up, up the slope or down that steep slope.
Janet, you're familiar with the street?
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea to put in no dumping sign. I mean, whenever I drive through town, it's full of landscaping trucks and material, and but I do think the other sign we have, which is no use to pesticides, herbicides, or de-icing salt, that would be an appropriate sign up further on the property.
I think I tend to agree. Off the back end of the driveway, and that's something, Monique, that you and Janet could figure out location.
Okay.
At the end of the project.
Yeah.
It's really because we see all those landscape trucks, very often landscapers aren't paying attention to anything. And we found that the signs have been helpful over the last few years to not have landscapers, well, it forces them to think before they just dump.
Yeah, no, 100%. And do you all have specs for signs? Or
Yeah,
I
we
can
do. We
talk
have-
to Janet
yeah.
about that.
You can talk to
Okay.
Janet Schill, and we
Okay.
have wording and so forth. So
Okay, great.
we
Yep.
do everything but supply you the sign.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Um,
thank you.
Janet, does that cover your bases? Relative, in addition to the, so incorporating the 6 special conditions there?
Yes, so it's that
Okay.
5 special
10
conditions.
to 5.
What's that?
We're taking out the permanent bound requirements, so it's
Right,
5 special conditions.
okay. Deducting that, yeah. Okay, I will entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Move to close the hearing.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Tim?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
I'm an aye.
Okay, move to issue a negative determinant of applicability to approving the project with the 5 special conditions outlined in the agent's report.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Tim?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Okay, great. Thank you very much, Monique. And looks great. And
I
Lori
lose you?
will, you can contact Lori for getting the paperwork on that.
I'm sorry, I think my connection went out for a second.
Oh, we voted to approve?
Okay, great. Great,
So-
that's fabulous. And
Okay. We-
is there a waiting time for RDA? Like what happens?
Janet or Lori for an RDA as opposed to a order of conditions?
Yes, there is, I believe there is a waiting time. So technically Lori has 21 days to get the signatures and type up the form to you. But I'm not actually sure with an RDA, if there's no, though there is an appeal period of 10 days, yes.
Mhm.
Okay, 10 days, okay.
And their RDAs are not recorded?
Right.
I don't think, no,
Yeah.
I don't, no.
Okay, so in that 10 days, Lori sends out notices out to the commissioners to drop by and sign off.
Okay,
And so that everything happens simultaneously.
okay.
So, okay.
All right,
and-
wonderful. Thank you,
okay,
everyone. Have a
Great,
good night.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Let's see, next up, we have a few notices of intent, some that have been continued. Where do we stand? 283 Dedham Street?
Yeah.
Is it Archia or Archaea?
Yes, so I'll just do a little summary on this. They have
Okay,
P number. I did do a site visit, and I know the legal ad has been published. This is a straightforward project. There technically is no work being done within the buffer zone, but they are accessing the back of the property for a major construction project and using an existing paved driveway, that is extremely close to the buffer zone. I mean, the wetlands. It's within, in some places, about 5 feet. So as we've done with some other projects, including the Glen Street solar array, as a precaution, we've asked for erosion control barriers along the
mhm,
and so that is really all the projects involved. I did ask for clarification. There is an off-site vernal pool. It was referenced in the MOI. It's a potential vernal pool, but under our bylaw and regs, it's presumed to be a vernal pool, but it was not shown in the site plan. I also asked for them to show on the site plan the erosion control, compost sock with orange construction fencing. Today we got a revised plan that does now show the vernal pool. And I just saw the plan electronically and I could not see the detail on the erosion control. But maybe it was on there. And
And is anyone here from representing them? Oh, I see Liam and any folks who are associated with this want to unmute
Yes,
themselves and thank you.
Nick Courtney from Merrill has his hand raised.
Okay, there we go. I have quite a few on the screen. So, okay, Nick, why don't you fill us in?
All right, so do you mind if I share my screen?
No, go ahead.
Please.
All right. So, as Janet said, we're here looking for an order of conditions for the site, to be able to install erosion control along the existing driveway. I will run through the existing conditions really quick. So, this is an existing single-family residence, and they're looking to raise and rebuild the residence with some other proposed work. There is several wetland series that were delineated by Brad Holmes of Environmental Consulting and Restoration. These blue lines on the plans represent the wetlands. This is a bordering vegetated wetland series to the east up here. This is the existing driveway entrance off of Dedham Street here. As you can see, it's pretty long. And these are the two wetland series that Janet was mentioning, bordering vegetated wetlands right along the driveway.
Mhm.
So, most of our work, or all of our construction will be out of the 100-foot buffers to any of the wetlands on site. But as Janet mentioned, there will be construction vehicles coming, entering and exiting the site via this existing driveway. Some of the site improvements we're doing are, we're gonna be relocating the existing driveway here, regrading the driveway, proposing a barn with a parking area, doing some stormwater improvements via infiltration basins and subsurface infiltration systems. As far as erosion control goes, this red line is our limit of work, and this area is our construction portion of the work. Here. This green line here is our 100-foot buffer, so as you can see, we're staying out of that buffer zone. This is our demo and erosion control plan. Here, as you can see, we put some erosion controls along the driveway.
And as Janet noted, do you have a drawing of the erosion control barrier?
Yeah, it's on this plan, actually. It's right, hold on. Right here. So this is the original plan set that we had sent to conservation about a month ago.
Yeah.
And this is just the silt sock detail, which will be compost sock at the limit of work. We had since revised this detail on our most recent plan set to include the orange construction fence. And if you would like, I can show you that detail and the vernal pool location.
Please.
Okay. All right. So we had submitted this electronically today. I think we had just gotten comments back recently, so this is as soon as we could do that. But this is our detail here. Calling out, so we're keeping the silt sock, obviously, and then in front of the silt sock will be the orange construction fencing with stakes.
Okay. And the Janet, does that meet with your approval?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, great. And then the vernal pool?
Yeah. So just because of
I see. So it's along the driveway?
yes, so we
Okay,
couldn't
off the
really fit
driveway,
it in
got it.
originally
Where-
into our viewport. But we did a little blow up here of where the vernal pool is located. It's I think it's 2 lots away, but this is the 100-foot no disturb, this green line here from the vernal pool. So
Okay. So the driveway, an existing driveway, has gone through that for years. Is
yes,
that correct? Okay. Okay.
Is the vernal
ahead.
pool been registered? Or
I think Janet had mentioned it hadn't, but it was presumed. Is that correct, Janet?
That's right. It's listed as a potential vernal pool,
okay,
but under our bylaw, it's presumed to be a vernal pool and
right.
protected.
No, I was just looking for another one to list in the OSRP.
Okay. And did you say that's actually, what are these 40-foot lots that go back and then open up, and that's 2 lots over?
yes.
Okay.
So
Even
Yes.
be on our land, then is that possible?
Well, I know that, yeah, you have, those pork chop lots that go there with the 40-foot runs there. So, okay, that makes sense. Okay,
You know, the
Janet,
ones
is
we
there,
just got.
what's that?
given. The ones that we just took from the tax taken lots.
Right. Janet, any other items you I know you've had extensive discussions with Mike Angieri for stormwater management, given the size of the work there. Is that correct?
That's right. I know the consultants have been working with Mike to address chapter 159.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is
Yeah.
ours. Yay.
Mm-hmm. So
Oh, let's get out there and certify it.
oh, it's on our property. Oh, okay.
It is.
Any Janet, any other issues that you want to bring to our attention, or where do we stand relative to its completion?
Yeah, so, again, they submitted the changes today, but they were fairly minor, but they addressed all of my concerns. So I do recommend issuing an order of conditions with the 6 special conditions. Not permanent bounds, but the signage.
Mm-hmm.
We would determine the location of those once the project is completed. The compost stock, and then, all, let's see, the monthly progress reports, and then all stockpiling of material outside the 100-foot buffer zone. So those are 6 special conditions.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I don't have your name on the screen. It's just N. Courtney. Is that correct?
Yeah, Nick
With-
Courtney.
Nick. Okay, sorry. So as I looked over this, you designated particular areas for storage, or is that going to be dynamic as things get down on the site and they're going to move elsewhere from place to place, or because
So-
it's given its size, it's probably there's not a whole lot of place outside the buffers where you can stockpile things.
Right, as far as I know, we coordinated a stockpile area here for demolition.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not aware of what would take place during construction at this time, but I would assume it would,
So it's better to be forewarned. And Janet will stay on top of you on that, because it'd be very easy for you to move outside of those buffers because of the size of the site and the extent of the work. So it's be a good idea to plot that out. We don't need it right now, but we will want to see that as you move forward.
Sure, sounds good.
Okay. Janet, anything else relative to prior to a vote?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Move to close the hearing.
And Nick, can you take thank you. Nick, can you take your plan off, please?
Yes, sorry.
No worries. Okay, all in favor? Sarah?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Amy?
Hi.
And I'm an aye.
A move to issue an order of conditions approving the project as presented with the 6 special conditions outlined in the agent's report.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Tim?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Amy?
Hi.
Sarah?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Okay, congratulations. And then stay in touch with Lori. She'll let you know how it progresses in terms of signatures and the like. Okay?
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, have a good evening.
Have a good
You
night.
as well.
Thanks. Okay, next up, 14 Rule Drive. Tree removal in a buffer zone. Let's see, and we have this as on our agenda. I don't know if this has been changed. So apparently Cormac is not the entity involved here. Is that correct? Janet?
Let's see. I'm not sure. I think Lori received that communication and then just,
Okay.
so.
Hi, Laura, you're up. So we had a communication that basically said that Paul McGovern is not associated with this. Is that correct?
Yes, so Felicia did change the agenda on the website per Paul McGovern's request. So
Okay.
this is Debbie Anderson's here tonight for this, I think.
Okay. And
I
so the
am.
actual entity is what now?
Corrigan.
Corrigan, is it?
Yes, Patrick Corrigan and Debbie Anderson.
Okay, great. Okay. Let's see. Janet, why don't you bring us up to date?
Sure. So, back in, let's see, January 30th, we had received, a communication from, Joe Doyle, the town's local building inspector, who had been contacted by a neighbor about removal of trees within the wetlands buffer zone. We asked for more information from Mr. Corrigan and his representative, Mr. Tiberi. Based on that information, they did confirm that they removed 37 trees within the buffer zone of both a vernal pool and 2 BVW areas bordering the property. We issued an enforcement order. Let's see. And we had 6 requirements. We wanted a narrative description as to why, when, and by whom the unpermitted trees were removed. That was not included in the NOI, so we would like that. We asked for a site plan showing the size and locations of all trees that remain on the property, and also those that were removed and their diameter. We did receive that. We also asked for a tree filter zone analysis to determine if 50% of the tree recover in any 100-foot section of the buffer zone had been removed or not. We did receive that. We also wanted to make sure that they had contacted Mike Angieri about compliance with Chapter 159. That is in progress. We also asked that the vernal pool, the presumed vernal pool, it's not a certified vernal pool, but it is shown on Mass Mapper as a potential vernal pool. So that was located on the plan. So when I was out there during the winter, it was snow covered. I really was looking at the trees. I was not able to see the ground cover. When I was out there this past Saturday, the entire lawn area had been resodded. The photo I sent to you showed that what appeared to me to be filling and some grading very near the vernal pool, and actually both sides of the property looks like there has been some kind of alteration. Wood chips have gone in. So my sense is I would like to do a site inspection with the owner and with the consultants and also the commission to walk the property. Normally a site plan with something like this, we get the contour lines on the site plan, and those were not included. So I don't know what the property had looked like, so that should really be a conversation with the owner as to whether there was fill and grading, especially near the vernal pool or the presumed vernal pool. It looks to me very much like there has been a substantial.
Janet, can you speak a little closer to the mic?
Sure.
Thanks.
So I think John could give a presentation and show us the site plan. But recommend a site inspection to really get a better feel as to if there have been any other alterations in the zone.
And Janet, have you been out to the site?
Yes, I was just out this past Saturday.
Okay, and did you at the potential vernal pool, did you observe any, amphibian life?
I did not, but I also didn't circle the entire area. So it's a little late now.
And is the house been raised?
No, it was a remodel.
Oh, okay.
And so, but it appeared to me that a deck had been added in the buffer zone, but that would be a question on the site walk.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Evening, Debbie.
Good evening.
Can you share your screen with us and fill us in?
Sure. Okay, let's see. Share. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So just a couple clarifications. So I was contacted, I went out on December 31st and conducted a delineation. And then I think you guys issued the enforcement order, not until February. As far as the 37 trees, they did not admit that they cut down 37 trees. The surveyor went out and found 37 stumps.
Okay.
And he went back out, and you can see on the top of the plan, there were several old stumps that were well into decomposition
Mhm.
that were obviously cut previously.
Mhm.
Not a great color, but the yellow orange. Yeah. On the map, there was 15 trees that looked as though they had been previously removed.
Mhm.
Freshly cut stumps were 23. And when they later went out and surveyed in the existing trees over 4-inch DBH, there were 138. So those are all surveyed onto the plan. So it's our assertion that there's 23 freshly cut trees as opposed to the 37.
Mhm.
Um,
And then your percentages,
Right.
there are,
Yep. So as far as the tree analysis went, the
Mhm.
highest was 27.2, I think.
Mhm.
And that's in area D.
Mhm.
And while no trees are supposed to be removed within 100 feet of the vernal pool, so obviously that's a different story.
Mhm.
So I did, do the delineation during the winter. There is a good slope down to the wetland that's a potential vernal pool. So I would feel comfortable that the limit of the vernal pool and the limit of the wetland would be the same line. And on the other side of the property is a bordering vegetated wetland that I delineated on that side. So as far as, when and why they were cut, I do believe that they had an arborist look at the trees, and part of the reason that they were cut was due to the health of the trees. But I believe that that
Can
Pat's,
you,
sorry.
pull that down a bit and show
Oh, I'm
us,
sorry. I'm half
show
asleep and
it,
I'm just
so,
playing with the plan.
yeah, so basically it's that circle around the house, is where all the things were cut. We see the red and the yellow, there. So it just happens to be
Correct.
trees that were close to the house as
Yep.
opposed to tree, so, because,
Yes.
there's room for, an opposite conclusion there.
Mhm.
So, okay.
Right. So I believe that Pat's partner is here as well, so he may be able to speak more to why they may have been cut when they were.
So are you saying, as you look at that and you did the tree numbers though,
Mhm.
looking for after the fact that you're well below the 50%?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And those
Okay.
calculations are, at the top of the
With
plan.
that, yep,
Yep.
okay. And
And those are all trees that are 4-inch DBH or larger.
Okay. And,
And
go ahead.
how many of them are in the 40-foot no disturb zone?
That I did see in Janet's notes that she wanted the 40-foot no disturb added to the plan. So we'll have to
Yeah, well, it's clearly that a bunch of those trees were cut there.
Mm-hmm.
And also in the 100-foot vernal pool buffer.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
The no disturb as well. So really it's
right.
100-foot is controlling on that side.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we can count those up. The 40-foot, we should probably we'll add that designation and count them up. I can see that that Pat's partner Phil has his hand up. Maybe he has
Oh,
more.
is that Phil? Okay, there we go. I see. Yeah. Okay, so you're all set with what you had to say, Deb, for the time being?
I believe
there
so,
anything-
unless you
Okay.
have any question.
No, right at the moment, not yet.
Okay.
So, welcome, Phil.
Hello.
And go ahead. You have the floor.
Sure. Thanks for the time tonight. I appreciate it. So, in relation to those trees that were right around the house, they were either touching the house, so there were branches, et cetera, growing onto the house, or they were deemed to have rot in them. So those trees were taken down prior to us closing in order to make the site safe as we were doing a renovation. We had hired Dave Cobb from One Way Services to go out, take a look at the trees and remove the ones that were considered dangerous or coming down. So as part of the closing for our insurance purposes, that's why those have been tackled. And there was one other point, I couldn't quite get my hand up in time. We have not expanded the deck. That deck was part of the original house, so we have not touched that.
Okay. And did you happen to document the site prior to your cutting the trees down so we'd could compare and contrast?
I will check to see if we got that.
Okay. And did you have a letter from an arborist regarding any of these trees?
No, we had Dave Cobb go out and take a look at it.
And is Dave an arborist?
Yes, he
Or
was
just
told
a tree cutter? What's
he
that?
was told to make the site safe.
Right. No, I just didn't know if he's an arborist or if he's just a tree cutter, and not just
Okay.
but in a non. We'd like to hear from arborists in these sort of circumstances. Have you been before us yourself before?
I have not.
I didn't think so. So for future purposes, you can see the issues that we would prefer not to have to deal with after the fact.
Yes, I appreciate that.
And we take it quite seriously. So, Janet, what are your recommendations at this point?
So I mentioned in my review report, I do think a site meeting with the commission, myself, Deb, and the owners to walk the property to discuss if there has been fill. There certainly have been wood chips applied that are new.
And
And
they're within the buffer?
basically on top of the vernal pool. The pictures I took in my report show that. And the wood chips go up, it appears at least 4 to 5 feet up the trunk of a tree adjacent to the vernal pool. So there has
Really? So Phil, are you the supervisor for this project?
I'm the managing partner of the LLC, yes.
So are you on site when things like this are being done, or you're there multiple times a week?
I'm by there several times a week.
Okay.
Pat's on site generally on a daily basis.
Okay.
And those, I can confirm there's been no fill used. Those wood chips were from the trees that were
Right.
cut.
That's what I'm assuming. And but normally in most worlds that I've inhabited, nobody puts 5 feet of wood chips up against a tree. And it's not healthy for in general there. So Pat was Pat the supervisor at that point when things were coming down and they were just chipping off into the woods as opposed to taking them away?
I think
I'm
that
not sure
they were
at the time, but-
piled. There was a pile of wood chips the last time I was out there.
Yeah,
So
I
I
just
think
imagine the way these things normally go. If you're not putting them into a truck, you're chipping them in a certain direction.
yeah, there was a stockpile, and
Yeah.
and I believe that they were putting the sod in, and they did put the wood chips in, thinking that they were stabilizing those areas from erosion, is what I've been told.
And is there much of it? We don't see any grade here. Is there Is there much of a grade difference here, or is it a fairly flat site?
No, there's a decent grade going down to the vernal pool.
Okey doke.
That side.
That is part
Okay.
of the reason we use sod instead of seeding,
Mhm.
was to try to maintain. So we put the sod down where the existing lawn had been,
Mhm.
in order to try to minimize any concern around erosion or runoff.
Right, it was
Mhm.
existing lawn area previously.
Yeah, I'm looking at Google Earth and I can see that there's some lawn that extends close to the vernal pool there. But we don't see everything there. And that's where it's always helpful to have existing condition photos taken before a project starts. The okay, so Janet, you would like to you think it would behoove the commission to come out for a site visit?
Yes, yep.
Yeah. And does anybody have a particular date in mind? Anyone? Bueller?
Fridays and Saturdays tend to be good for me, but Fridays if it works for people.
Let's see. This week, Friday is, let me see. Oh, actually, later in the day on Friday would work. It looks like. Let me see, on Saturday or potential Saturday. How's that work for other folks?
As long as it's not too late on Friday.
Okay. So
Yeah, I
would,
can. Well, I
would,
Yeah, I'm in Needham till 12:30 on Friday.
okay.
couldn't
So
do it
after
till the
that,
afternoon anyway, for sure.
Yeah, so I'm looking at somewhere between 3 and 4:30. Does that work for you, Tim, in terms of not getting too late?
3 certainly is fine.
Mhm. So
4:30
somewhere between 3 and
4:30 is
4,
pushing a little bit.
would that work for you, Anna?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm thinking for me, 3:30 would work.
Sure.
Anna, Tim, Amy, how's your schedule look?
Yeah, I can do it.
3:30 is okay.
Okay, and Deb, for you?
yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Janet, how about for you?
Yep, that works.
Okay, so we're looking at 3:30 on the 25th.
Right, and I either one of the representatives from the builder, whether that's Pat or Phil.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be there.
Or
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Um,
one who's familiar with the site pre-construction. That would be helpful.
yeah, have you been involved since the beginning, Phil?
I was part of the original purchase, yes.
Okay, then so you're familiar. Please see, we can, do Google Earth and Google View and Google.
I'm wondering
to,
if
to
since
take a
the
look at things.
property was for sale, maybe there's
Well,
pictures
that's it.
from.
That's yeah. Where that was the next thing I was going to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
What's that? Oh, no, that's actually that has been very helpful looking up listings. So but very often they don't give us a street view. So we'll see what we can get. And also if Phil, if you have anything that would be helpful. And then so we'll be there to observe, and then we'll have a follow-up meeting there. So is there anything else you'd want to touch base on, Janet, relative to this property tonight?
No, I had checked that no DEP number's been assigned. Deb, I don't know if you've had any dealings with DEP on the number.
I haven't. I checked myself just before the meeting and saw that it's up there. At least it's on the site. It does not have a number yet. So I'll
Okay.
follow up with them next week if I know.
And Laura, did we get appropriate checks? Laurie? Deb, you can take the
You
plan down,
know,
please.
I
sorry.
believe so. I don't have any notation that we needed checks, but the file's back in the office, so I will be
So if you
sure.
just double check. I asked just to make sure that things are in process, another
Yep.
check on relative to DEP, receiving stuff. Okay. Thank you, Phil, for checking in with us, and we will see you Friday afternoon.
Excellent. Thank you for your time.
Okay, night.
I'm
Um,
I'm gonna be staying on, I guess, when you get to 29 Saddle Ridge.
I think we're just
Or-
gonna deal with that as a, pretty much an incident report. And
Okay,
then and so, then there'll be notification of what we're looking for. But I think, so just, and I'll fill the board in terms of our discussion. If you want, I mean, you're perfectly willing to, to hang out, but it may be a little bit of time.
I know, that's why I brought it up.
Mhm.
So if you need me, I can stick around. If not,
I don't see a need, for
okay,
that. I did check in with Artie. He has no problem with you using his plan. If
okay,
that, makes things, move faster.
Yep. And I'll be
And then,
going out to the site Friday as well.
on Friday, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay,
Then, okay, thank you much.
all
And
right.
I don't think you're anywhere else, for things, so, unless I can notify you if something comes up, but I think we're just gonna, I'll be filling people in on, where things are there, okay?
All right.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Let's see, next, 8 Pagan Lane, I, let's see, I guess that's on, Paul, is that correct, Laurie?
Paul had submitted an estimate for
Mhm.
work on that, and Anthony Demiano is here for the applicant. He's
Oh, there
from
we go, okay,
BZA.
great, okay. And so Paul, why don't you fill us in what the scope, would you see the scope of being here?
So one thing, I probably need to recuse myself because they're actually using DLCT land for this.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Paul.
Sure. So I've only taken kind of a first cut at looking at this, but basically it's a proposal for a dam repair on a small pond. The work within the resource area is fairly limited. There's some fairly detailed plans by the engineers who are on tonight. As Laurie said, I was asked and submitted a proposal to do some peer review. Would certainly like to meet and see the site in person. They have developed a construction protocol, which is really the most important thing in my view for a project like this. Is how would one do it without making a mess, essentially. They've clearly put some thought into that. I may have some questions about that when I see the site in particular, but they do, they have developed that, as I said, and put some thought into it. One of my biggest questions is for the area that they need to use to access the work area, is what is the current condition of that? There's a little bit of conflicting information, I think, in the NOI. They talk about, there won't be any disturbance, but then they talk about using mats, which they don't detail adequately in my view. And then they talk about reseeding the area. So I really want to get a handle on just what that looks like and what are the realities of getting in here and getting a cement truck, for example, in close to this area to pour and pump cement to get into there. So I think it would probably be useful for the commission to see the site yourselves, but also to ask maybe the engineer to walk you through the plans so you get an understanding.
Okay, great, thank you. Welcome, Anthony. So we're recommending, we're enlisting the services of Paul McManus as our special consultant, both for his expertise and also for our workload. And so I don't know if you've received his estimate for this job.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that had been approved yet.
but yeah, I'm not. As we proceed on this, we'll make a determination, but generally we do approve those. But it's also upon your review, if anything seemed out of the ordinary for the scope of work that was outlined, you absolutely can raise questions on that. So why don't you, given that, why don't you, we'll give you the screen. You can fill us in on what your proposal is.
A second. Can we see that?
Yep.
Yep.
Great. Yeah, thanks again. This is Anthony Damiano with GZA Geoenvironmental, representing Catherine Russell for this small dam maintenance project on Fuller Pond. Her parcel to the north is 8 Pagan Lane, but we're actually going to be accessing the project area from Farm Street and the existing paved driveway for 15 Farm Street, which is actually has some construction of its own. Currently, we're going to be coordinating with them, but it does sound like we won't have conflicting schedules, and we don't anticipate a large number of trips back and forth for the level of effort on this one. But more on that in a little bit. So access, like I said, off of the existing paved driveway ends right in this area here. And to touch on that, one of those points from Paul is this hashed temporary access and staging area, which we've created to or split up into different chunks here just to be sensitive to the fact of staging within the 100-foot buffer, which we've proposed not to do, and that this additional area would be for temporary truck turnaround safely for construction vehicles. But the main access would be directly to the pond itself from this southeastern side of the spillway and small dam. And proposed work involves replacement of a central pier. I'm going to pop over to photos real quick. These were included in the application as well. As you can see, it's a fully concrete structure, and this central pier here is in fairly poor shape, and the main reason and concern for replacement of this pier, not the spillway, but just this pier. And as Paul alluded to, we do have some fairly robust cross sections showing what we're proposing to do in this area. It would be to remove this dilapidated piece of concrete and replace it with a centrally located piece of concrete, poured concrete that will rest on the bottom of the concrete structure. This bottom, it's underwater in this photo and both times I've been on site, but this is it does have a concrete floor to it, to the spillway before it empties and continues downstream. This photo here is looking back up towards the dam. You can kind of see the pier up in the center there. Photo of the pond, and that's looking downstream. So I'm going to flip back over for proposed activities. We don't anticipate tree removal. We've called out trees here just as a for those and for you all and the contractor to be advised of, but we do not propose tree removal. Maybe some minor trimming, we call that out here along the way, but really for those who have been there, fairly straightforward access through some two existing white pines that we do not need to remove,
And this is this is the parcel owned by DCLT, Dover Land Conservation Trust. This parcel here, we have coordinated with so far to utilize access, which allows us to avoid that tree removal, which would have been required if we came in from the north from Catherine's, Ms. Russell's parcel. So we appreciate that, and yeah, appreciate this opportunity to use this side of the stream for a more effective and least impactful access point. We have erosion controls in yellow here, which we've extended down. We don't anticipate much ground disturbance, if any, in this temporary area. It's currently a grass area, which I believe is mowed with some regularity. And that was really the main focus of a site walk that we did have with Amy from DCLT and the owners of 15 Farm Street. And if there is any sort of, inadvertent ground disturbance from trucks backing up and so forth, that would be restored with, seed as necessary. But as I mentioned, we don't anticipate having too many trips, really that many trips at all, to complete this work. It's about 50 square feet footprint of concrete, and really just a few cubic yards worth to replace that central pier, which will allow us to provide some more stability to this small dam, and which is the main interest of the project. I believe. Oh, so to touch on the temporary impact, which besides these areas here and by the road for additional staging as needed, we do not have a contractor as of yet, but wanted to provide them with these areas for staging as needed. Again, not a lot of equipment required for this relatively small maintenance project, but we do they will need some space for staging equipment, so that's included. And to get back to the temporary access, we do expect to have to bring the truck in, along this access, and this is, depending on means and methods that the contractor, like I said, we don't have one on board quite yet, but for projects similar to this, we've seen concrete trevied in from a longer, using a longer hosing, which would avoid bringing the truck, right up to the dam. We don't anticipate that's necessary. If that isn't available to the selected contractor, we did include basically in this corner here temporary access with one or two mats for an area that I believe is 44 square feet in this corner of BVW that would be temporarily impacted with flat mats to gain access to that area if needed.
So Anthony, do you know, would you be using a concrete pump truck, or are you just looking at a longer sluice, sluice runs added onto it?
Those are both options. We just don't know exactly what equipment the contractor will have. I would expect them to have both at their capability, but certainly something I can follow up with once we know more. We'll be submitting bid documents after receiving the order conditions.
And was engineering done on, if this pier is going to be resting on that floor, do you have an idea how thick that floor is?
It is, I would have to look back. Let's see.
I don't know if you have a cross section or anything.
Yeah. That's where I was.
And it's that middle pier?
Yeah, so that middle
Mhm.
pier, it's more of kind of a 2D, and we're proposing a more of a 3D buttress is
Mhm.
what
Yeah, my only concerns is just to make sure that it's not going to settle, that it's properly tied into the existing concrete, just it sounds like, is a building inspector involved in something like this at all, or is this just a land maintenance issue?
Yeah, not to my knowledge. It would be, since it's on
Mhm.
working with
Paul
Catherine and the rest of the.
Paul McManus, is this something, those sorts of questions, are they things that you would typically bring up, or is it outside the purview?
I mean, I'm not an engineer, as you know, so I mean, I would
Mhm.
kind of consider these things perhaps, but I'm not really qualified to render an opinion.
Mhm.
While I do have the floor, Anthony, is this dam subject to DCR, Office of Dam Safety?
It's not. No, it's not registered.
Okay, that I assume so.
And is that due to the small size?
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Okay. So that's a question that probably should be addressed relative to the engineering. If it's a 6-inch slab, it may not hold. If you find out it's a 2-foot slab, then, you may have that ability. I just think it would be helpful for all parties to know so that something doesn't go south in the middle of a pour.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Make a note of that. I think yeah, I think I've run through
And then
bullet points.
are you looking at, um, how do you hold the water back while you're doing this?
Yeah, so we included a water control detail. Let's see if I can navigate to that. But well, basically we would basically do it in a couple of different sections, and be able to isolate kind of two halves or one half at a time of the spillway, likely with sandbags, and allow water to continue to flow on the opposite side as work continues.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a a high volume. The pond certainly has I don't have the acreage on me at the moment, but there's a large amount of water held back by the small dam, and that's one of the main concerns of getting this addressed as soon as possible. But there isn't a large flow at any given time, and so we don't anticipate issues with water control, but certainly need to be ready with the right
So is
materials.
the mustard colored line, is that erosion control, or would
That is, yes.
okay, and in the off chance that something were to unanticipated happened and you had much higher flow with silt and so forth coming out of this, is there any mechanism that you have ready to put in place, or to protect downstream components there?
Yeah, we don't have one drawn here, which we typically might not. Let's see. We don't have one drawn on this plan exactly, but we could recommend a turbidity curtain for downstream
Yeah,
just in case.
I think, yeah, because life doesn't always go as planned, so.
Certainly, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I'll make a note of that as well.
Anthony, can you put up your sheet C2, which shows the cofferdam and the phasing? I think that would be helpful for the commission.
Yeah, we'll have to go. Let's go to the larger document here. Having trouble with that PDF for some reason. In that section, let's see. Yeah, let me try to pull up another one real quick. It's advancing without when I'm not sharing. Let me just get to that page and then I'll reshare them. That was the water control page you're looking
Yes.
for.
And while you're doing that, I have another question is, my understanding is, that the flashboard elevation is not to be changed from the existing condition. Is that accurate?
Oh, that's right. You mean the height of the pond itself?
Correct.
Right. No, we don't anticipate that. It's basically the stop logs, which are also proposed for replacement. Those are in various states of disrepair, bowing in some places actually. Those will be replaced in kind. The stanchions that hold those in, I think we're replacing those as well, perhaps adding a couple more. And those are just the simple mechanism in which the boards sit on and stay in place. So that level will be the same, relatively, if not the same height.
So this is your
Here
water
was that.
control, the water control.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so if
So
you can now zoom in a little bit.
so we kind of have this two
Got it.
two
Okay.
different phase
Yeah,
one and
that's
two
that's
here.
basically what I was looking for, for. And how is that done? Is that done via the cofferdam itself? Is it sandbags? Is it a structure of some sort that you use, in other locations, or?
Yeah, we envision a sandbag cofferdam approach. I know there's other mechanisms that they may deploy that might be easier and just avoid the sand. If there's a low enough water in the pond, they may be able to use this type of bladder system that basically you fill with water and that actually walls off an area. And that's really if you have good banks on both sides to extend against. So that may not be
right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that may not be feasible, but an option.
Okay. So it sounds like, is there still additional conceptual work being done, or is this your full presentation on for the permit there?
Yeah, no, this is these are the permitting plans that we anticipate to use for the bid.
Okay. So,
bid
and do you have
documentation.
do you have a time frame when you're looking to do this?
ASAP, of course, but realistically, we'd be at this time of year anyway. We wouldn't really like to do it with the higher water levels.
Right.
So, end of summer, August,
Okay.
before we get into fall and higher rain again would
And
be.
have you when did you apply for your, you got your number?
Yes.
Did you get any response from DEP at all? Did they
Not
raise any questions?
not that came into me. I'm sure you'll
And how long
ask
ago
Janet if
did
she,
how long ago did you apply?
this would have been March 18th, I
Okay.
believe, somewhere around
Okay,
there.
so Janet, have you seen anything come back?
No, I don't think there were any technical comments.
Okay, so I think we have an idea of things. Paul is going to need to review this in greater
Mhm.
detail. So make sure that you coordinate with Laurie in terms of getting a check to the office so that we can cover Paul's estimate. And then it seems to me a site visit maybe a little premature at this point. I don't see an immediate need for that. And it probably would be helpful. Paul just had knee surgery, to give him a little time to see how that's shaking out.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Paul, you won't know for a few days to see how things are going. Is that right?
That's correct. I'm optimistic that, a site like this, I would be able to get out and, it seems like really it's a walk on relatively, up the driveway and relatively open area. So I'm hopeful that I'd be able to do that in a week.
Okay, so I'm looking at the possibly on Friday the 9th or Saturday the 10th. Does that seem likely for people? And for you, Paul? That seems to give you enough time to,
Yeah,
you-
yeah, way out to May 9th. Is that what you're
well,
saying?
we can do prior to that. I was just, I just flipped through my calendar. So I have the other option is May 2nd or 3rd.
Yeah, I could do the second. I'm pretty confident I'll be fine for this level of effort on the second.
Okay. Anyone else? Does that work for folks on that Friday? And later, afternoon for that?
Do you need, I can't vote, so I don't think I
Okay.
need to be there. I can
Well,
only.
you actually,
Fridays.
it's not that you can't vote. You actually have the ability to say that it doesn't impact your judgment. And I think given that it's a nonprofit and so forth, I think you could make
Okay.
that case if you wanted to. And you
Well,
can certainly.
I have
you could
actually seen the site.
Yeah, so, okay.
So don't worry about me.
Sarah,
I can
Annie,
make it.
Sarah, Anna, Tim, how does the second?
Again, not too late.
Okay,
Saturday's a
so,
little better for me, but both are fine.
okay.
I'm
how's
in,
that-
I'm kind of in, I'm in the quandary, as you know, with hunting on Saturday. So Fridays and Saturdays are hard for me. But if you pick a time, I will try to make it. I know that
Okay.
doesn't help.
Would Saturday late morning work for folks?
Not for me.
Nope. Okay, Saturday work for you at all, Tim? But more in the afternoon?
Afternoon, yeah.
Okay. How does 3 o'clock on a Saturday?
Sure.
Okay, so Saturday the 3rd, work for you, Paul? Or did you want the Friday?
I would prefer the Friday. I'm not sure Saturday, but
Okay, got it. That's true. I was you don't live in town. And so we're back to Friday afternoon. Unlikely for Sarah, likely for Anna. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And Tim
Yeah.
at 3 on Friday?
Yeah, I'm sorry?
3 on Friday?
Yep.
Okay, then how's that work for you, Paul?
that's fine. I can do any time on Friday. Did I hear 3?
You heard a 3.
I can do that.
Okay, so great. We'll do, and where would we, Anthony, if you could arrange for this, let us know, where would we park? Whether we,
Yeah.
get permission, either 15 or probably 15 would be the best for us. If you can arrange for that, please.
Yeah, I wanted to confirm that you wanted me there as well, first of all,
Oh,
but
absolutely. No, yeah,
yeah,
we expect you. Because if we have questions, we don't
yes.
put dams in that often. So
Hmm.
personally,
I mean,
so
if you run out of space, you can always park at Springdale Field and walk across the street.
okay. But we'd like a nice flat, close area for Paul.
Well, no, I mean Springdale Field is, the parking
Oh
area,
yeah.
that's very close.
Okay. So okay. So we're looking at 15 Farm Street, 8 Pagan.
It's literally across the street.
Yeah. No, but then there's a little hill, isn't there, to get up there?
That's fine. I'll be fine, John.
Okay. Okay.
It's a gradual hill
Okay,
up.
so Friday the 2nd, Anthony, absolutely. We want you or a representative of your company to be there to with plans, full-size plans. Janet, does that work for you? I don't know if you don't need, I suppose you with Paul's involvement, but Janet, you have your hand up?
I do. So yeah, I don't think I need to be at the site meeting. I had a quick question, maybe Amy or Anthony could answer. As I recall, the pond itself is owned by there's a Fuller Pond Association.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure if where their ownership ends or not, but are they all on board? I know they all got an abutter notification, but it wouldn't hurt to have something in writing that just acknowledges that they have seen the plans and support them.
Well, the association is not paying for this. Catherine Russell is.
And it's done on her property.
It's on her property.
But
Certainly Stephanie and Peter have, which is the whole this side of that, because they own 21A and Dottie Marcus's old place, which is I don't know, 19, 17, and 15. So the whole Farm Street side of the pond, I don't know about the Brooks. I think we recommended that they talk to them, but
there is temporary disturbance. The Coffer Dams is within the pond outline. I just think it would be safer if somehow there was consent. I don't know where the ownership line is. If Catherine owns into the pond where the Coffer Dams and any temporary disturbance is happening, but if she doesn't, I just think it would be safer to get consent.
well, DLCT owns obviously the land right by the dam on the other side, because that's where they're staging it. And then everything on that Farm Street side of the dam is Stephanie Dangle and Peter Raymond, who were on part of this site visit that I went on with GZA. And they own the three properties that abut the pond on that side. So then you're just talking about people who are on the uphill side, which I think is like maybe
The plan does
they
show
use-
that the work area is owned by DCLT for the access, but the pond portion of the work area, according to the plan, is all owned by Catherine Russell.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And then just downstream from that is James Brooks.
The Brooks, right.
Yeah. And I don't know if he's involved in this or.
They're pretty good friends with Catherine, I think.
Okay. So I think Janet brings a good point. So just
The
make
Brooks
sure
are
this.
probably the only ones that we might make sure that have been informed.
Because as not being direct abutters, but it's where the stream goes.
Right.
So I think Jana makes a good point, and so if people can just beef up that communication there. And
Yeah, and I also know I can add that Catherine's been working closely with most or all of the abutters directly to the pond. and been updating them throughout this process. So I know that there has been quite a bit of communication from her to those folks, including
Mhm.
those that Amy mentioned.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, then, I think at this point, does anyone have, any additional questions concerning this?
Just one, Anthony, is it okay with you if I get to the site maybe an hour or so before the commission? Look at wetland flags and that sort of thing, and hopefully have that all tucked in by the time the commission gets there?
Yeah, that works great. Yeah,
Okay.
I updated them in February. I'm hoping they're still there.
Oh, good.
Okay, and can you notify the landowner 15 as well as Catherine, that Paul would be there, earlier, please?
Oh, yes. Yep.
And Anthony, one question to you is, obviously I'm gonna come in from 15 Farm Driveway. Is it reasonably easy to get across to the other side?
Of
You
the
know, if I
stream?
just throw on some rubber boots, is that sufficient?
Oh, the stream. Yeah, yeah. It's probably no more than 3 feet. Kind of right immediately downstream.
Oh, okay.
So
So,
very
Okay, so
doable
like
to
just
cross over.
kind of step over the channel.
Yep.
Yeah,
All
okay.
right, good. All right, so I will plan on being there at 2.
Mhm.
And then hopefully have some questions answered for myself
Mhm.
before the commission.
Okay, great. Okay, do I hear anyone else have any questions concerning this? Then, oh, Lori?
Just wanted to know if the commission could approve, take a vote on the estimate after.
Yeah. So did people have a chance to review Paul's estimate?
Yes.
And I believe, was it $3,400? Anybody know?
Yes.
Okay. So I will entertain a motion to approve the estimate for this project for to Ecotech.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Tim?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Okay. Great. Then we'll move on forward, and we'll next thing we'll do is let's continue this. If we're looking I'm thinking if the site visit is the 2nd, our next meeting is when? The
14.
14th?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Okay, then that ties in well. Then so Anthony, if you can email Lori a request for continuance to the 14th, please. Okay.
Yep.
Great. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Moving on is our next is we have a continued NOI hearing for Ty and Bond for Eversource, the Chestnut Street Bridge. Paul, why don't you fill us in on that?
Sure, I went out with Ellie, who I see here, and Amanda from Ty and Bond. Did a site walk. I had submitted an initial peer review letter with some questions that Ty and Bond responded to. We had a site walk and answered a couple more questions. Does the commission remember what this is about? Do we need to kind of do a quick
Well, I
refresher?
think just a quick thing of dealing with continued monitoring. Is that correct?
Yeah, monitoring and some investigations out there in addition to kind of regular, more typical monitoring. They're proposing to do some dye testing and to put in some test borings and monitoring wells down right off the bank of the river. So the big question I had there was kind of what and how. In other words, what type of equipment do you need to use to do that? How will you mobilize it, get it there, get it in and out, and what disturbance is required? On one side of the bridge, it's fairly easy. They have hand carried equipment. It's hydraulic operated. They have a hydraulic pump staged up on the road. which basically, has essentially a hammer drill, drives the well casing down. And, but on one side of the road, that's fairly straightforward. On the other side, there's a little tributary stream that enters the river right there. They need to cross that. So what Ty and Bonds has proposed after talking to their drilling contractor is simply to drop some planks down to temporarily cross that tributary stream. It seems reasonable to me. It makes me a little bit nervous because it's the sort of thing that if people aren't careful, they can do some disturbance and make a mess. So what I have simply proposed is that they get some documentation of what that area looks like beforehand, and then when all is said and done, provide similar documentation of what it looks like, essentially to verify that they didn't leave the area in an unstable condition. So I think what they're proposing makes sense, but I would recommend that, kind of a fairly simple, it doesn't have to be elaborate, but it would be akin to an as-built plan, but it's really an as-built kind of surface and vegetation condition for that. The other condition that I would recommend is, as I said, they're proposing to do dye, and they want to inject the dye up in the upland and see where it comes out, because they have this material that's breaking out through the revetment walls into the river, but it's hard for them to get their arms around exactly how and where that's happening, which is the purpose of the dye. So depending upon how much dye they use, how quickly it moves, that sort of thing, which is part of what they want to find out, they may end up with a discolored river. So, which tends to be very unnerving to people. So I've simply recommended a condition that they have some notification to the both towns. It's right, the river, as you know, straddles Needham and Dover. That they provide some notification to public officials. I've suggested a week and then an hour before they do that, just to help those folks out in case there is a lot of discoloration and the phone calls start coming in. So, and I think,
maybe a couple of signs that might indicate that the work is going on and it's normal.
Yeah, I think
For
something that would,
passers-by, just to eliminate.
yeah, something,
calls.
dye in use or something like that. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. I'm sure you must have something for notifications, but that something succinct would help a lot, would help.
Sure, I think that's reasonable. I see Ellie nodding in agreement.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that, for me, because I go over to Needham all the time, I think that would be the only bridge that I would think that would be the notification.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, just,
But the government, the town governments, and possibly the police stations, because that might be the
Right.
first place that,
right, exactly.
notifications of that would make sense.
Yeah, that's
And Paul, what color, this is kind of a stupid question, but what
No.
color is the dye?
it can be different colors. I
you
don't know
don't-
what they're proposing, but my experience has been it's a red or orange type color.
Okay, no, that's good
Very
to know.
unnatural looking.
Okay.
As
So
long
it's
as it's
not
not red dye
green
number
or
3.
brown. Okay.
Yeah, no, but I can imagine people downstream, since they've already had this happen, that something new that appears, they will think that it's happening again. So appropriate signage and notification would avoid a panic.
And
so-
how long does the dye last? Is it like,
It's again, it depends on, when they put it in, does it all come out in a slug? Or does it more likely weep out? And it may be a situation where it weeps out slowly and, they can see it where it breaks out the wall, but because it's a slow release, it may be a situation where you know, 50 yards downstream, you can't even detect it because it just gets mixed in and diluted.
It'll
Yeah,
also,
that's
it'll,
fine.
it'll also depend on how fast the river's moving.
How fast the river's moving and how quick, you know, as I said,
Yeah.
does the dye come out all in one slug or more gradually? So, you know, it may, this all, you know, the notice thing may be a non-issue.
Right.
But it's an easy step to take.
Okay.
And it's an interesting, I was thinking of the flow going the opposite way. It's going to flow towards a less populated portion of that river. You know, so it's, okay. And what's the, time frame we're looking at?
So for the drilling, for the installation of the monitoring wells, we're hoping within the month that we can start that work. The dye test, there are some more things that we're going to consider. It's something that we're still looking at, so we don't have a proposed date for the dye test at this time. But it would be, the dye would be placed in a monitoring well, so the drilling has to occur first. So it's not, would not be with until at least
And
that happens.
do we have all the information we need for voting on this, or is there additional stuff we're waiting for?
I don't have any outstanding questions.
Okay. And which is interesting. So with Paul, with you handling this, normally Janet works up a her approval notes. And Janet, I assume you've been out of this for that? Is that true, Janet?
Yes, but in his April 18th memo did outline 3 recommended order of conditions, special conditions. And I just had a quick question on that. I would think, even though the planting will likely not impact or destroy vegetation, I would add a condition that if registration may be required if redetermined by third-party review.
Registration?
Restoration.
Okay. I think that's appropriate. Okay, well, given that,
Sorry.
does anyone have?
And then
Go ahead.
just one other, that our monthly progress reports are required.
Oh, right. Okay. So given that, does anyone have any other questions or anything to add? I will entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Move to close the hearing.
Anyone? Sarah?
Second, sorry.
Thank you. All in favor? Tim?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Anna? Oh, there we go. Amy?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Okay.
Move to issue an order of conditions approving the project with the 4 conditions in the consultant's report and the additional potential restoration issue based on the consultant's observation.
And the signage, Tim, that the commission discussed?
Yes, and notification of both towns, police and
offices.
administrative offices, and signage to inform those on the bridge that there is dye testing going on.
Okay. And I think, and last thing, and also monthly
Yes,
progress
monthly-
reports.
Monthly progress, yes.
Okay. Great. Entertain a second.
I second.
Oh, thank you. All in favor? Tim?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Okay, great. Thank you. And
So I'm dying to see this.
I do too.
Sorry.
I mean, I drive, I mean, I grew up there. That's where I grew up right on the Needham Dover line. So I'm like dying to see the whole.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, it may be anticlimactic, so just so
Yeah, it
you
might
know.
be.
So, okay. Thank you much. Have a
Thank
good
you.
Thank
evening.
you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
guys.
Have a nice night.
Okay, next we have I guess Lori, 88 Pine Street is continued.
Yes, Artie sent an email and requested a continuance on behalf of the owner.
Okay, and I spoke to Artie today, and apparently they're reviewing, potentially reviewing a different well company to see if there's something in terms of, not necessarily relocating, but whether they can get them to drill closer to the current well. So it's all on them. We're just waiting for them to figure that out. Let's see, next, I think, Paul, is there any other thing for you to deal with tonight?
I don't think so. I guess I'll ask Laurie, do you have my, the text of my proposed conditions, couple more were added from me. Do you need anything from me in terms of getting out the order?
I don't think so. But I'll
Okay.
give you a call if anything changes. I don't think so, though. I have your reports, so
Okay.
thank
Okay.
you.
Go to
Great,
sleep,
thanks.
Paul.
Thank you, Paul. Yep, sleep well. And
Heal quickly.
okay. Okay, night.
Good night.
Thank you all. Good night.
Okay, next up, we have the agent's monthly invoice approval. Let's see if I have that here, excuse me. And did folks have a chance to review that?
Did. Well, I can't find it.
I sent it out April 6th and then resent out April 19th.
Okey-doke.
Not opening.
And as I'm going through this, Janet, I'm just curious, so 35 Brookfield Road, which you and I went out together on.
Yep.
Does that include, that's multiple dates that you're out there?
Yes.
Okay.
That was
And
that-
did you bill for some of that, the previous month as well?
No, this was the whole RDA.
Oh, it is, okay, great.
two-
No, I want to know, because I knew there was, for an RDA, I didn't know if you had a previous month there, because there seemed to be, multiple site visits and things like that. So, let's see, what else we have? And on 92 Main, has that NOI been, has that OOC been granted?
Yes, that went out
Okay.
last. while.
Okay. I'm just flipping through here just to see if there are things where we might, we are officially, if we grant this evening, we officially have spent all of Janet's the money that was associated with Janet's contract, and
Budget,
we'll be
yeah.
dipping into other funds. And so and we'll, Jan and I will meet up in the near future, but we're still trying to figure out, these things still seem to come in hot and heavy, and we're trying to figure out if there are ways to economize. And yet, when you look at here, there's just a lot of different properties that she's dealing with. So Lori, relative to this amount here, did you have a chance to pull together a good approximation of where the money will come from?
Well, I wanted to check in with Janet and Anna and see if there was still 17,000 something in trail maintenance available.
Yes, well, we came up with our estimates and we definitely want to use some of it. I was gonna send out a memo. I can screen share from our draft minutes instead because I completely forgot to write it up.
Sure.
Okay, let me.
And also the Springdale Meadow Land Management Plan is going to be about 7,000 Lori, did you take that into account when you looked at the balance?
Well, there's 5,000 in land management, and that was my question. How much of the trail maintenance would be needed for that? I figured the 5,000 in land management wasn't available. But, so there'll be another, how much more? 2,000?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but another.
And is that all paid this fiscal year, Janet, do you know, or is he doing additional work that's gonna cross the fiscal year?
No, that's all due before the end of the fiscal year.
Okay. Hmm. So we're looking at two to come out of an additional account. Okay, so Anna, why don't you take us through? You have 17,895, and you're looking at future costs to be done with this fiscal year.
Yes, these were our thoughts. We did a great big bog bridge last summer. We think we can do two more efficiently. One at Springdale, at 46 Springdale, and one there's a like really short span in Wild Woods that's along the beach trail. That's a really beautiful little stream that currently everyone just steps in. So those were the plans, and then we had various other things we were thinking of. We wanted to do the right-of-way signs. We wanted to be able to buy random supplies that were not into the bog bridges. I was proposing we bring coffee and donuts to our trail day on this Sunday and probably another one this year. So we want to put in for refreshments. And then we have the land management plan, 5,000 there. The leftover going into this spot up in trail maintenance, and then the last was $1,000 for the cypress spurge. So I added that up, and let's see, did I put it in?
So that cypress spurge was potentially what, $1,700? If we got 10 of those, wasn't it 174 each?
Oh, this was before I had the beetles, before we were talking about the biological control. This was just for the research into whether it existed. We had an upper bound estimate at 1,000.
That's additional going into bill. So there's the 7,000, there's 1975 plus that, so it's actually closer to an additional 3,000 beyond the $5,000. Okay.
Well, let me see. So the land management plan was 7,000. This was the original quote.
Yeah.
This is taking out of the 5,000 for the land management plan here. And then I bridged the rest of that plan into trail maintenance and the last 1,000 for the research.
Got it. And then the idea of actually purchasing the beetles is
this was before I did this before we
so it was $1,000 for him to research and come up with the beetle solution. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was the research to come up with a solution, not the beetles themselves.
Got it. Okay, so just to let people know, we had a site walk with Bill on Saturday, and walked around, and there is significant spurge throughout that, and he also sent out something today, I believe, relative to cost benefit analysis on how to deal with this, and his research had come up with stuff from Rhode Island and a number of different states have, as well as a bunch of European countries, have come up with a number of small beetles that zero in on spurge and are very, very effective without affecting anything else at getting rid of spurge. And to cover that entire field, and they stay for the entire growing season. So they basically have 3 generations during the growing season, and they I forget how many beetles are in a container, but we had talked about somewhere between 7 and 10 containers, each container being $175. I think it comes from Colorado, and that comes out to $1,750. Which would eventually, if it seems like it works pretty well, may then allow in a year or two, the ability to have those fields cut for free because the hay might be able to be used. And so hence there's a payback period potentially on this. And so that's, and the data on that was very convincing. As opposed to roughly $50,000 to do it all with some form of herbicide applied over 3 years, which has a high degree of success, but has its own other downfalls there, in addition to the cost. So that's what Anna and I were just talking, as we're talking about beetles, we're talking about bugs as opposed to groups.
I
I
had a question. What's a board?
A board?
Yeah, it's four
Oh, it should have
$400
been
a
board
board.
foot. That
Yeah.
was me.
That's not for rough sawn, just milled stuff. That's
Yeah.
cheap.
Yeah, that's what we paid in Ashfield, and it's Greg was saying it was running at like $10 a board foot around here, but
That's
Jay was
different.
like,
That-
"Oh,
that's-
well, I'll do time and expenses," which was going to be cheaper.
That's kiln dried.
Yeah.
This is not kiln dried.
No.
Okay.
Milled. It's
Yeah.
just sawn.
Mm-hmm.
Not
But it
dried
is,
at all.
yeah, but it's an advantageous price for, for
Yeah?
a local.
Okay.
Or do you think it's rich, Tim?
I think it might be a little bit much. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I know that
Okay.
Rift sawn white oak has gotten very expensive. Everything else
Mhm.
has gone down.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just flat sawn boards and
And this is, Anna, this
I
is,
don't know.
wood that Jay has, or are we providing it?
We're providing it. So the
But all
idea
he's doing is
was
milling it for that?
They took a white oak from Boynton that
Yep.
had
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
fallen.
that seems like a lot just for milling.
okay.
Well,
So,
no, Jay took it down though. I think
Oh, okay.
there was some,
Maybe whatever. It's just
and they were talking about coming over to, I have I don't know, a really tall, big cedar that they're talking about coming and
oh,
taking.
right, yeah, that was raised when we were on our walk, that that it was a lovely tree and would be very useful for any sort of stream crossings.
Very
And,
straight.
yeah. So anyway, I mean, the difference relative to what we're looking at would be a matter of hundreds if we went out shopping, and then we'd have to move it.
yeah, I mean it's
yeah.
okay. It just seems like a lot just for milling.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't disagree. But but at the same time, I don't know if it includes his taking, his labor for taking the tree down and moving it. So
Okay.
Well,
anyway, so
pass along
Anna,
to
where are you coming up with for money left? Where are we
Do you want
ending
me
up
to
with
add the beetles in? Let's see.
I think, yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay. I'll have to update this.
I would round up the beetles to 2,000 because there's shipping cost.
Yep.
2,000 for biological control?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is just amazing compared to 50,000. So let's see.
Oh, yeah.
That would be, isn't the 2975 the remainder?
Let's see. Where's 2975?
Right. Just above land
Oh.
management. that one.
Oh no, that's the overage beyond the 5,000 land management budget.
Oh,
So
okay.
this is Springdale
Okay, I see.
plan
Yep.
itself. So I end up with, do the math, oops, minus all this. So that's what we have left in trail maintenance, and land management is zeroed out, which is kind of exciting. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. So then what we have left after you do all that is $7,600?
Yep.
Okay. And then we have roughly $7,800 in the WPA fund. And what was it, Lori, around 1,800 or was it 1,600 in, Janet's contract amount?
1,600 left in professional services.
Okay.
I'm just confused by the numbers. So all those,
Yeah.
all the things that are listed, you're not adding all those up? Like refreshments, right away, miscellaneous?
I believe she did, isn't that what that parentheses there is?
Yeah, this is the supplies section. I can do it out, but
Well, I mean, I wrote down all those things that I can see numbers for, and I came out with 17,450, and then another 2 for the Beatles comes to
oh, let me
19,450.
let me clarify. So that's, thanks for checking me. That's plus 500. Oh, that ends like here on supplies.
Mm-hmm.
And then Springdale Management is this. So the extra almost 2,000, which is here, plus the extra 1,000 for the cost benefit analysis. So that's the almost 3,000 plus 2,000 for the biological control. And then this goes to 0.
Right, the management plan.
Oh, so the 5250 wasn't adding it up, not a.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
So then when you add all that together,
it's about $10,000.
it comes up with a balance of, in our normal $30,000 budget, we have a balance of 7,670.
Yes.
Okay, which could be utilized towards Janet's bill for this last month, potentially. Are there any other things that you could see that we would that we may be missing for projected not land management plan, but trail maintenance for coming up?
I don't think so, unless we do spring mowing, which I'm pretty sure we won't before July because
No.
birds and stuff. So
Yeah.
I think we're done on that.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So just a question, 5250, is that like a subtotal?
Yes,
is.
it's a
Okay,
subtotal.
because I added that in and
Yeah, I was
Oh,
confused by
right, so
that
you did
too.
it, then you
I'm
would have done it
sorry.
twice, right?
If you could send me that, Anna, that would be great.
Yeah.
So I can, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but you're
Okay.
coming up with 7670 left, 7,670
Okay.
left.
So we have
And-
available, we have 7,670 plus 1,600. So that gets us to 9,200 and 7,800 in the WPA. And I'm thinking potentially, I think maybe we use 5,000 from the trail maintenance just in case something comes up. So that we have a $2,670 balance for anything that might come up that we can utilize against a future invoice. But it's just nice that rather than using that up and then use the balance of Janet's contract money and the balance left over from those two items, we take out of the WPA fund. Does anyone have any?
Get to 10 doing that?
No,
Does anyone have
that makes sense.
co-
That's perfect.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so given that, let me pull this up again.
Oh, I can stop sharing.
Okay, so I then would entertain a motion to cover Janet's March bill for $10,943.75 to be apportioned as noted.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor, Tim?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
And Amy?
Aye.
And I'm an I as well.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, fading, sorry.
What's that?
I said, sorry, I'm fading.
Yeah, no, we're covering
I've
an awful lot
not
of
done a good
ground.
job of keeping you online, John. I apologize.
Oh, no,
Hi,
we just,
everybody.
they were relatively short, but, oh, hi, Mike. Well, you're still there.
I,
So,
it's interesting to listen to what another commission goes through. It's
well,
not like what we
absolutely,
do.
and I'd love to pick your brain, although we are trying to finish out the rest
Oh,
of the
no,
evening.
no. This is a long meeting. We have them too.
Yeah,
I
so,
just like to say goodbye and good luck.
yeah, no, I appreciate it, and absolutely a phone call or something like that would be great in the future to just compare notes.
Yes, I know.
I'd,
We never know what other people are doing, and we keep
yeah,
doing it our
no,
own
so
routines.
absolutely, I would look forward to that.
Yeah, okay.
So, okay, have
Luck
a good
tonight.
evening. Thanks. Bye-bye. Okay, let's see. So that cost breakdown there, Anna, does that fulfill your land management work group update, or is there anything else you'd like to add to that? Oh, you're muted.
Muted. We have a very power-packed meeting. We had a lot. So first, I'd like to buy coffee and donuts. Does anyone mind if I do that? We can probably vote. Or
So
muffins, because it's the afternoon.
for 250, can we grab a few croissants in there?
Yeah.
No. Yeah, so when were you thinking of doing this?
It's Sunday afternoon. The Arbor Day walk is on Saturday, and we're then Sunday afternoon.
So this is this coming Sunday?
This coming Sunday.
And have you gotten feedback in terms of people who are going to show up yet, or where do we
Not
stand
yet,
on
so
this?
I'm not going to buy that many snacks.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And I just, yeah, because I've been out of town and so forth. What so it's on Sunday at what time?
You have two right now, I think.
Ooh, thank
well,
you.
I'm not sure. Kay Peterson and Peter Raymond, I think.
sweet.
But
Oh,
it's saying one and showing two, so I give up.
wow.
And where's this going to be?
We're gonna be parking along Snows Hill and doing Blue Trail work on Center Street, or going over to the Center Street turnout, depending how many folks we have.
But I
And
also
then and what's it
also
entail?
sent it to the whole walk list today. So
Oh. And what's it entail? What sort of maintenance are you doing?
It depends on who we get and how much they want to move things around. The idea was we could do a version of more trailblazers because we need that, and directional signs. We also want to find one of the mysterious cedar posts that have gone missing and put it in and put a bigger sign up. Or depending, reroute some trails that there's like going straight down now eroded hills. We want to kind of switch back them. So there's that. The idea is we weren't going to go so far as to try and do any like light bridges just because that seemed chaotic to be the first one, but pruning and blazes and bigger signs if we can.
And do we have the signs?
We do,
Oh,
I believe. But we don't know. We're looking for a post to hang them on. So I heard there was a mysterious cedar post somewhere in town.
At some point, did somebody come and grab some posts from my barn? I don't,
I got one of the routed signs from you.
Yeah, I'll check. I
That
know at
Tim,
one
I
point.
thought Tim was the router, and that
My router
No, the
is
router's
out of commission.
you're out of commission.
It
Or the-
broke.
Oh,
And
broke.
can you get the chip or the board that needs to be replaced, or?
Yeah, I can. I have it. I just have to install it, and it's not it's complicated.
So, yeah, because at some point, I'd like to get a list of signs we need. I'm just wondering if there are any. I'll check my barn, but I think those I think Jim may have grabbed those, and they were fluted cedar. I think they're
right.
Yeah, I think they may have been used elsewhere. Lori?
Yeah.
I'll have to check with Carl Warnick, but there may still be some posts. I doubt they're in the townhouse, but he may have stored them somewhere. I'll ask.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That would be great.
There was certainly supposed to be.
Well,
Well, I
I've,
know some went to John's barn, I thought, like you said, but I don't think all of them did.
So, and Anna, what time is that on Sunday?
2 in the afternoon, but I'm happy to quest about and find posts,
So
tomorrow,
when do you
Friday,
need to know
whatever.
about the posts?
By Sunday morning would be great.
I'll see him
Well,
tomorrow, so I will just ask him if we still have them and where they
that'd be great.
are. And I
Yeah,
can
they-
communicate with you. You'll have to coordinate some kind of a pickup
Sounds
some.
perfect.
Yeah, I have this
Mhm.
vague recollection that they were moved someplace like the attic, some attic or someplace.
They were on the lower level, kind of right inside the doors there that aren't used. But they were kind of in his way, so I don't know if he might have moved him to a storage trailer somewhere, but it's
Okay.
not far. I don't know.
That'd be
I have
great.
to check with him.
Yeah,
Okay,
if they
I'm just
turn
writing
up and
down.
or I can find them, that'd be great.
Yeah,
I'll
I'll
let you
take a
know.
look. I'll take a look at in my barn as well, just to see. But I think Jim had grabbed them. Okay, let's see. Next we have is that are you all done? Anna, I didn't want to cut short.
Actually super fast. There's one area where there's a trail that has been picked up where it wasn't really designated anywhere, but everyone just goes literally straight through a wetlands. So we wanted to close that off. Does
Mhm.
anyone want like documentation before we do that? Or if we see trails that go straight through wetlands, can we just take
Yeah.
them off and come back? Okay.
Seems
That
like a
sounds
good
good.
Is there
idea.
an alternate trail that goes around that wetland, or do you
Yeah,
have to cut
yeah.
it? Oh, okay.
That
So,
one is good. Then also in terms of cutting new trails, especially ones that are like routing away from wetlands, do we want RDAs or do we want letters? Like I can do up a memo and say we're doing this and we can decide case by case. Because there is one that we probably not for Sunday, we want to take photos of and like move the trail like tens of feet because it goes through wetlands and we want it a little further away, but not
mhm.
reroute it hugely. So I'm curious
So
if anyone wants me to do an RDA right away or come in with a memo.
no, I think well, Janet, I think this comes under general trail maintenance that doesn't require that. Is that correct?
So it can be a little bit of a gray area if you're just maintaining something, but if you're putting in like a new bridge or cutting a new trail, I think it makes sense just to at least run it by the full commission, Anna.
Okay. That
Yeah,
sounds good.
no, and I think in as memorializing it as well, location and so forth. I think that seems appropriate and checking in with us like you are now, to do that. In terms of blocking off trails, how do you propose to do that?
The plan is to start with just, I don't know, visibility tape and a sign and a paper laminated sign that says like rewilding and go this way. And then go from there if it's not getting respected.
Because I've seen what trustees do is they basically take debris, wood, fallen wood, and fill up the trail. Just
Good idea.
block, and then it can be a bunch of branches that take up a lot of air but make it difficult to go through. That coupled with the sign, seems to be pretty effective.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay. Let's see. Anything else?
No, we're done. We're
Okay.
excited.
Okay, let's see, any other business prior to getting into Janet's report? Okay, Janet, why don't you fill us in?
Let's see. So, well, we did have minutes, but do you want to defer those again?
I do, unfortunately, yeah.
Okay. So the high school dumping issue that was brought up, Dawn did just leave a message for me. I will be back in touch with her and do a site inspection and we'll report back. 6 Meadowbrook Road, that's a David Parrish project. They hadn't submitted their monthly progress reports. They did miss their deadline for submitting their certificate of compliance. The property is on the market. So I'd suggest maybe a follow-up letter go out from the office and we give them a new firm date. I'm just afraid the property's going to be sold. He's going to be out of there and there could be issues.
Interesting thing. So when it comes to developers who tend not to be that detail oriented, there is would it make sense for us to require a bond to ensure compliance in the future?
Yes, we certainly can do that.
Okay, so I think it's, there are a couple builders I have in mind, but this is so, so that's going forward. I think on this one in the letter, maybe state something to the effect that um, that we're requiring this to be done, and to put them on notice that that there will be no special treatment, the week before closing, to grant a certificate of compliance. That's why we're asking for it now.
Yep, that makes sense. So, do we want to give him 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Actually, why don't we give them 3, because that's when our next meeting is.
Okay. So Lori, you'll get that letter out to David Parrish?
Actually, my sense, actually, let's give them 2. I mean, by the time the letter really may not go out till early next week. That's my concern. So then he gets 10 days, but yeah, he should be able to file for that prior to that. So,
Okay, so that's the 7th, May 7th, the new, okay. Okay, 36 Wilsondale is another ongoing situation.
Oh, so interesting. So I spoke to Bobby Keene today, and also he sent me photos, much clearer photos, non-snow covered photos. He did not want me to go on the property, which I'm not surprised. However, with his photos, I could cross-check them with Google Earth and compare things over the last few years. So, and I could basically, he has toys, he has boats, he has this, he has that, and in the middle of all that is approximately 6 loads of 10-wheel loads of gravel and loam. And then I measured off to wetlands that I could see based on vegetation on Google Earth, as well as there's some small body of water. I don't know if it's a vernal pool or what it is, but all of any direction I went from where these piles are was more than 200 feet away from any sort of apparent wetland vegetation or wetland bodies. So I appreciate we talked. He sent me the photos quickly. I feel pretty comfortable that that also that's not staying there. He expects that to be removed within the next 4 to 6 weeks or so. Go ahead.
One of the places that he said that he often gets rid of fill when it's he doesn't need it is Brian Austin's property, which is also full of wetlands and
So he mentioned, well, no, he didn't.
USGS. It was in the email.
Yeah,
It has it's Army Corps as well as a lot of wetlands.
Apparently his brother lives out front there. And so I looked at Google Earth on that as well. And because there was a concern that there was gravel being put in there. And what I saw was a few years ago, it did look like there was some additional loam brought in, but then it was spread, and it was spread over areas that had been farmed. I didn't see any expansion.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just.
So then
I
it
know
raises
Bob Keene
yeah. What's that?
Bob Keene built my barn. And yeah.
There was a concern that was coming not from Bob Keene, but it was coming from someone else. And that's why I pulled it up on Google Earth to take a look at it, because my initial concern was whether or not Brian was expanding into the wetlands or stockpiling. But looking at the history of things, it all got spread out, it all got planted, it all looked like loam.
Yeah, no, I
actually.
just worry that if Bob is just randomly dumping stuff. I mean, the fill that he used when he built my barn is crap.
Yeah.
I'm constantly pulling weird stuff out of my paddock. And it was supposed to be, it was supposed to be clean and good, and it's supposed to not be, it's supposed to not have, supposed to
Well,
be
so the
topsoil, and it wasn't.
the piles
So-
that I saw on his property actually look pretty good, gravel. I believe, I think his somebody he knows. I don't know if it's his brother. I can't recall. But it came from Mill Farm for the riding rink, and then is going back there. They actually
Yeah,
were
no,
running out of
I mean,
space. So
whatever, it
so
just,
yeah, but it did
I
bring up
trust him about as far as I can throw him.
I hear that, which is why I verified via satellite. Also, it raises an interesting thing, although it appeared benign looking at Brian's property there. But as an agricultural exemption, does he have an ability to actually expand, in the buffer for additional agricultural
No,
work if he wanted
because
to?
that most of his wetlands are part of the Army Corps easement.
So it's off his property?
No, the
Or is it
Army
just an
Corps
easement?
easement, it's an
Mhm.
easement on his property that was put
Mhm.
on there before he bought it. And
Mhm.
therefore it's Army Corps easement says you can't do anything.
So regardless of DEP and agricultural exemptions, that
The
prevails
Army Corps
beyond that.
could go after
Yeah,
him if
yeah.
he started
So
filling in.
I went back 10 years. I didn't see any change in
No, I don't think
our lawyer
Brian,
and stuff.
I actually trust Brian more than I
Mhm.
trust him.
So anyway, that's my update on 36 Wilsondale. So my feeling, and it's relatively benign, but it was 200 feet minimum from anything that appeared like it could be something. And I don't have an issue with any sort of further enforcement on that because it wasn't subtle. It was quite a ways away from anything. Then
Why didn't he want us on their property? Is he afraid we're gonna
we
find
ran into
other
this.
violations?
We ran into this before with do you remember Nelson? He was the guy who put up a house to the right of Bobby's driveway. And he bought the land, and somebody before him had put 4 feet of wood chips on the property in the wetland. And at that point, there was an issue about wanting to go down Bobby's driveway if something had come up, and he was extremely adamant that he didn't want anybody down there. The next thing we're going to be coming up, we're going to talk about an issue that happened over the weekend, which then is going to bring up whether or not pick and choose our battles and when to get the police involved in things. And in this particular case, yeah, he has stuff down there. It's I've been down there before years ago. It's just stuff gets, I'm saying dumped, but it's like multiple boats that get put there with all sorts of intentions to use them, and then they don't get used, or they're used very rarely, and just trailers and this, that, and the other thing. But they all seem close to his house, which seems a fair amount of away from there. And he doesn't want people down there. And my concern there, if I couldn't see anything with satellite, is that I don't think there's a reason to escalate unless we absolutely positively know we have an issue. And in that case there, I felt clear enough based on being able to locate where, from the photos he sent me, where stuff was, to just fine. We don't need to pay attention, not pay attention. We don't need to pursue that because it seemed very clear that it was away from things. However, we have other things coming up that we'll bring up that we'll talk about. So Janet, on 31 Springdale? Oh, you're muted.
The property owner has missed multiple deadlines. And I think, John, you were hoping to make some progress with the owner.
I was, and so it's been a busy week for me. I've been involved with many conservation things, behind the scenes. And so I will try to get to him next week, and I will point to him. We will be I wanted to get a site visit. I will talk to him about that. And what I'm getting from him and from some other folks that getting engineers to come in uh, is getting harder and harder, and also they're getting pricier and pricier. But I'll go in next week, and I think we're at the time to start threatening fines. And I have a list of questions that Lori's been keeping for me to go over with town council and see what we can do, because we have been running into things that are a little bit more either passive aggressive, people not responding, or directly oppositional. And I want to find out if there's something we can do where we can actually have teeth, and if we can't, is there something that we can get that we can vote on that would allow us to do so, and that I need to run by town council. So let me put in my calendar for 31 Wilsondale, and let's take a look here.
31 Springdale.
I'm
yeah.
sorry, yeah, let's see, thank you.
Remind him he's encroaching as well.
Okay. Okay, then next there was a Jan and I had been out at 46 Springdale for along with Anna and Bill, and Janet left early to go to an appointment on what was the name of the street there? Conrick Lane. And while she was there, she noticed that there were a large number of landscaping trucks at 29 Saddle Ridge. So Janet didn't park behind them. She went and she drove into the driveway to see what was going on. And one thing led to the other, and the homeowner there had guests, and everybody came pouring out of the house and surrounding Janet and accusing her of trespassing. Janet, why don't you fill in folks there? Long story short, police were called by both parties. I was called. It was a circumstance that I don't recall us encountering before. Janet, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I'm making a statement that the police will include in their incident report, and a copy of that will go out to everyone. But John summarized it accurately. We do have a legal right under the bylaw to enter a property, to deal with enforcement, or to perform your duties. So I've never had an issue, but the landscapers, you may recall there was the pond in the back. So the entire back had been landscaped, riprap around the pond, steps around the pond, and that was clearly in violation of our enforcement order. So I was there and just wanted to speak to the owner, who had always been cordial, and but he came out of the house. It was clear there was something else going on in the house, but he came out, he was enraged, he was threatening me. He yelled at me to get off the property, which I did. But it escalated very quickly. I was afraid for my own safety. I got off the property, and I called the police, and I called John, because I really didn't know what was happening, but they were making all sorts of accusations and threatening me. And I didn't think that was, I thought the police should be involved in John. So the police came quickly, John came quickly. The police and John de-escalated the situation. John has had subsequent conversations with Mr. Pierre. I think he had apologized. And I think we're hoping to have some resolution here. But I would never have foreseen that this situation would have turned into such a threatening situation. So it was disturbing, but I think it's an opportunity to look at how I handle enforcement situations. And so John and I agreed we're going to come up with more of a protocol, a more formal way. And I would just ask commissioners, if you enforcement situation, the email should go to John and then copy me and Lori. because sometimes I get enforcement emails just on my own and John's not copied. So I just don't want to put myself in a situation like that ever again. So I'm thinking that, you know, we may have the police more involved in some of these enforcement situations.
So since that, so basically after that, Janet's right, I de-escalated things. Spent approximately 3 hours after that with Vadran and his aunt. There were some other family members who have nothing to do with anything who were actually the most vocal and the most threatening to Janet. They were vocal to me in the beginning, but I told them that they didn't have any standing. They then came up to me while I was speaking to Vadran, and they apologized for their behavior. There are concerns from their point of view, which they have mentioned before, that they think that they're, or Vadran thinks that that we're singling him out because of his either his Caribbean background or his race. And I've made that very clear that no, it's really just been we deal with people who do things improperly with the wetlands, and that we welcome him to town. We're not trying to move him out. We just want to solve this thing and fix it. So I then also, he mentioned that getting it's another situation with it appears with Goddard Associates, in order to do a final restoration plan, they're looking for a significant amount of money and quite a ways out in time. And so I looked at this. If you recall, we were looking at, this is a bylaw only situation. This attorney, getting more information from him was interesting too. This is it's a man-made pond with a clay layer on the bottom. I've always wondered if that clay layer was perforated, whether it would actually hold water, because people don't spend money on clay unless there's an issue. Apparently, we saw a picture when there was Goddard Associates was arguing back and forth whether it was jurisdictional or not, and whether it was a vernal pool. And all of a sudden, we saw a picture of a catfish in there, which then makes it by default not a vernal pool. And researching things, that could very likely have been wintering in the mud, even though they had done a lot of work there, and that could have been a holdover from the original owner's koi pond. So it was a bunch of things going back and forth there. The main thing is that we determined based on volume, which had been staked out by Artie, that it was jurisdictional. It was jurisdictional by the around 200 to 300 cubic feet more than what the threshold was. It's in the middle of a let me see if I have this. It's in the middle of a pine forest. So there's no BVW around it. What BVW might have existed at its top of bank, we assumed when we originally went out there with the original infraction, it was a mud pit, so we couldn't really tell. This has become for all of us a mountain out of a molehill in terms of what its actual effect is on any sort of wetlands. And so I asked him if he would be willing to work with Debbie Anderson to just get a restoration plan. Looking at it, we're looking at probably 5 trees, 30 shrubs, a seed mix. And she was willing to do that, and she made contact with him. I then made contact with him yesterday as well, prior to Debbie being out there, and then Debbie went out early last evening, and so the idea is, and he had sent us something in September after our August meeting, because we had led him to believe that he could do we would entertain him doing a fence, because he really is, and it's been consistent all the way through. He has a hyperactive 5-year-old boy. He's been giving swimming lessons to, it's not taking. He's just deathly afraid. They came from the city, deathly afraid of the drowning, that I know that we tried to make him realize that we didn't think it was a concern, but that's, no, it is to his core, he is scared to death of that. So he wrote us something in September I looked at, and I think also something in January that made reference to um, speaking with us to, what he needed to do for seeding the back lawn and putting a fence up and putting spiny, thorny bushes in front of the fence as a buffer, all this to keep his child away from that. And I think that then got turned over to Paul, and I think there's a funding issue with that. Paul did some stuff on that. And the way I presented it to him was, and to Deb, is let's come up with something to fix this thing with as part of our enforcement order, as opposed to requiring a notice of intent. The idea is to get this done as quickly as possible. It is benign in any sort of effect on any sort of wetland that I can see. It's an artificial pond. It's just things have, and he has not been faultless, clearly, on this. He did the work that he was not supposed to. He did additional work. He maintained that he thought it was because it was a mess. He thought because we were entertaining the grass, that grass was benign, and he'd go ahead and replace the grass that was already there. That's an interesting point of view. What I didn't understand was the patio block walkway all the way around the perimeter of the pond. And so, which, had been told that he couldn't, we didn't address that, but he'd been told he couldn't do that type of work. So I'm hoping that within 2 weeks from now, Deb presents us with a restoration plan, and we can de-escalate this, and at the same time do the proper thing for a bylaw only situation there.
He can't afford a fence and plants, but he can
Afford all the hardscaping? That's
hardscaping.
No, well, and
he doesn't want his son near
so
the pond, but he's hardscaping all the
I
way
am not
around
saying
it.
that he is consistent in his behavior here.
He
And so but the main thing is
lying through his teeth.
I want some very clear guidance on this. He approached me, he texted me, I think the other day, about if we proceed with this, he doesn't think he'll be able to afford a fence. He's been getting outrageous prices from things. And part of this is just homeowners getting prices from people that, I don't know if anyone's encountered it, but some people are just throwing outrageous prices out, and people who don't know or to where to look
yeah,
or
there's
how to
the super
persevere.
outrageous price. I don't want your job price.
Right, exactly. And so but on top of this, as Janet mentioned, it gave us an opportunity. I spoke with the chief of police today, and had spoken to the other officers. And when they first arrived at the site, they didn't know if they had jurisdiction, and they were hesitant and they were confused about, I don't know, I want to say confused, but the accusations of trespassing and all that. They wanted to know what our legal basis was, and Janet put together a statement that also incorporated under Chapter 181, Section 12A of our bylaws and regulations. It spells it right out, and it specifically says that we can enlist the police if we desire. The chief mentioned today, he read that. He said absolutely. And Jen, you and I can talk about that in the near future. But he said basically, upon 15-minute notice, if Janet is going to do an enforcement visit, she can call the police station, and he will have a cop meet her at the site. So he's perfectly on board with that now that he's gotten familiar with the regulations and so forth. Speaking to Debbie Anderson, she mentioned that there's a new environmental police officer from the state who has visited her in Needham and offered his services as well for separate of this, before this even happened, about saying, if you ever need me to accompany you somewhere, just give me a call. I think the Dover police might be able to do it faster, but it's so there are in
They're
both.
offshore now.
in both, and basically the police confirmed, basically people are going a little nutty out there. They're just running into more oppositional behavior, more anger, more, on many of their calls, things have gotten ratcheted up over the last 5 years compared to what it was prior to that. I think if you ever see something, the first rule is, if you feel compelled, obviously notify us, but knock on the front door. That's the first thing to do. It's not to go out in the back or go on somebody's property and review things. It's knocking on the door. If I know, Janet, you had somebody on Claybrook who basically kicked you off the property after you knocked on the door. Is that right?
Oh, I'm sorry. What was that, John?
Didn't you have somebody on Claybrook who you knocked on their door and they told you to get lost?
No, that was 90 Claybrook. He questioned my authority to be there and
Right.
was able to explain that to him.
Oh, okay. So it's just as the police chief mentioned, he said things are a little tenser out there than they had been. Be aware of that. Be civil, but also right at the moment, we're not going to go walking in people's yards unless we notify somebody, or we bring a police officer with us. Go ahead.
Should we talk to town council about all this? We've
Oh,
already got
absolutely.
police involved and
Yep.
the concerns on racism being singling out, like everyone
Yep.
should talk to town council.
So it's interesting. I've spoken to a few other people who've interacted with Vadran, and apparently he's had this concern for right from the get-go. He and I had a discussion where he doesn't feel very welcome. He's in a bedroom neighborhood and stuff, and I shared with him that unless it's the right neighborhood, like Janet's neighborhood up off of Glen Street or something like that, it can be pretty isolating in town. You don't get to know people unless you have kids in school, or there's not a whole lot of community activity compared to some other towns, and I pointed out that and no sidewalks and so forth, and that once the leaves come out, he's not even going to see his neighbors. So it's not it's not the town behaving towards him this way. It is an isolated place to try to set down roots. However, whether he incorporates that into his belief or he doesn't, this is his lived experience, and so I made that clear to the police. The police heard him tell him that himself, and it would be something it's already on the list to talk to town council about. In terms of not just fines and that type of enforcement, but also just enforcement in general. How do we approach things on that? Go ahead, Tim.
John, there was a time when we had official placards.
Yep.
That we would
I have
put on
one in
our
my car.
cars.
I showed the police.
Yes.
And I still have it. I laminated in the whole bit.
And we also had an ongoing relationship with the police department.
Oh, was there? Okay.
Yes, we called them, there was, I guess there were a couple of incidents and we called them any number of times to accompany us.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good to know because
all they do is park outside.
No, all you need to do is just their presence can
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
All they do is park in the street and
Yep.
and they keep an eye out, and if something happens, they're going to come out. But nothing ever happens because there's a cop there.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, and the chief was absolutely on board with that. He volunteered, and so I think we've been fortunate that we haven't actually encountered that sort of need. But I think it makes sense going forward. And what we have encountered is an increase in enforcement orders because of people just doing what they please.
Yeah, so there's I no longer have that placard, I don't think, but it was a laminated thing. And does it have the rule on one side and the?
Does it have what?
Well, what I recall is that it had kind of an official looking town seal thing, Dover Conservation Commission, and in the back it had written out the rule that we are.
Oh, interesting.
We have permit. No,
I have I have one. I'll check the back of it actually because I'm always putting it face up. when I do it, but that's if we don't have that as a Word document, we can make that up and we create that.
Yes.
I think it's very helpful.
Yeah.
Because I also have a laminated thing that's probably outdated of all the conservation and other green properties in town. Which has been surpassed by All Trails in terms of updating and things like that. But yeah, I think this puts us on notice that, yeah, working together with the police department and having something that I think that's a great idea, having something that you can just hand to somebody and say, this is why we have this right to be here. There are many things, there that should not be that hard for us to incorporate. And and also to create, as Janet said, we come up with a written policy on how we handle things, who gets notified, and then we just abide by them. So
And
Janet,
I just want to say, Janet, I'm sorry that you had to go through that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
oh,
Yeah, that's
but not
awful.
me.
I'm really, really sorry.
You too, John.
Yeah.
So no, it was,
may he rest in peace. Frank Taveri offered to carry a gun to the.
well, Frank came to mind because back also there was a point when, not necessarily with builders, although sometimes with builders as well. I think the office was a little quieter back then, but that jobs got assigned to commissioners so each filing had a commissioner assigned with it, so if they had any questions.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that was why I'm not sure if George was that involved with it at the time or if that came after the fact. I remember Frank telling me probably in the 90s, coming up, sidling up to me when I was building, was in front of the board, and he said, so I'm your commissioner, so feel free, let's, you want to catch coffee sometime, and if you have any questions, just give me a call. And I think we may be beyond that, and I think it also but maybe we can look at that for homeowners. I think for builders, it's still useful to have Janet interface because that's a different kettle there for that. But I think it gives us something to move forward on and work with. So I've checked in with town council. I've checked in with the police. We'll just create a global awareness of how to deal with that. And I will be working directly with Vaudrin because I just want this to get done. And I want to give him some level of consistency that does not appear like it's punitive.
Right. And you're shoveling them off to another person and blah, blah, blah. So.
Yeah. So, but also, I just want to get it done. It's not a big project. And I just don't, I don't want it. So I will keep you updated in terms of how that goes. Cause I don't know, given how he has not necessarily been consistent in his viewpoint at times. I'm hoping that by being a point of contact, that we'll be able to proceed and relatively swiftly. So I will keep you posted on that.
Okay. Well, I will say, John, it's now 11. I don't know. I know there's probably other stuff.
No, there isn't actually. I think Janet, we're very little left, right?
Yes, that's right. So the only other thing is a vote to approve using the biological control, which is the flea beetle at Dale Meadow. And again, that budget, it's $200 per package with postage.
Shipping.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we thought we'd buy 10 packages, and we may be able to use a couple of those over at Valley Farm as well.
Yeah.
Some progress.
So somebody want to so move that motion?
Sure, so moved.
Second.
All in favor? Tim?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Next.
And so I'm gonna have that, I'm gonna have those shipped to the conservation office. Let me think about that. Maybe I'll have them shipped to my house.
Yeah, why don't you do that?
Yeah.
Don't we need to release them like as soon as we get them, just about?
Pretty
Do.
much.
We'll have to,
Okay.
we'll have to have a flea beetle release party at Springdale Meadow. So,
Well, more donuts. So,
Yeah.
okay.
and then
And,
the
the
last
trout,
thing,
go ahead.
you might remember the Native Fish Coalition, they did this Trout Brook study. They actually
Mhm.
presentation in town, I think it was to Council on Aging, and a couple
Mhm.
of people have asked me, we tried to get them in, and for some reason I think they kept canceling, but I just wanted to see if people thought it would be worthwhile to have them come in and give a very short presentation.
That'd be great.
Do you know if they had a PowerPoint deck that they might be able to just send us? 'Cause we're
They
we're
do,
a little,
they, sorry to he did, David and his crew did it at Fin Fern Feather about 6 weeks ago. It's not it's not a short presentation.
yeah, that's
So-
right. And I think we're a little burdened for time
Right.
lately.
Yeah.
So,
So we can ask him to send us his presentation, I think.
okay,
Okay, that
appreciate
sounds.
it.
And then I
And
sent
then,
my article, so if anyone has comments, I've sort of recycled that a little. But if you have any comments, if you can get those to me by Friday, that would be great.
Yeah, I thought it looked
Okay.
great again.
thank you. And so the other thing is, we just had, I thought we had a few more continuances this evening, but apparently not. We covered an awful lot of ground. Thank you, everyone. And onwards and upwards. So hearing no objections, tonight's meeting is adjourned. And pleasant dreams, everyone. Thanks.
You all too.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good
Night.
night.
Good night, all.